This week in PlayStation, we're talking about should PlayStation buy Square Enix, what's PlayStation's summer plan, and the top 10 most wanted PS5 games. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Welcome to the show, everybody. That's Blessing. That's Janet. I'm Greg, and you can get this show on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. There, you can watch us record it live, get it ad-free, and get the weekly post show. If you have no bucks toss our way, support us on the Epic Game Store, Fortnite, Rocket League, or Fall Guys with the creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You XOXO for free with ads and without the post show on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, Rooster Teeth, and podcast services around the globe. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Anonymous, Fargo Brady, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, First Responder, ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, and then, of course, Alex J. Sandoval, James Hastings, Casey Andrew. Today, we're brought to you by ExpressVPN, Chime, and Babbel, but we'll start with a PSN message. Blessing, Janet, it does me well to see you. Kozibear writes in on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames.
Oh, he still has the Rubik's Cube.
I can't get rid of it!
Thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
he tossed
threw
it
it
again. You're gonna break that thing one of these days. Like, it's gonna.
But I broke it once and I reassembled it. That was the problem. Is that I can't escape it. You know what I mean?
You can reassemble a Rubik's Cube. You can't solve it though.
It's also then I got all the Puzzle Quest dice still. The dice are still here.
To reassemble it solved.
What kind of dice are those? Like D6s or those D20s?
They give us a whole bunch of different ones. Yeah.
Oh shit, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I hear it's the Millennium Falcon dice. That's what I hear.
Ah, good one. I see what you did there. I see what you did there, man. No, I left the black one on the floor the other day, and I came down here and Jen had found a big spider upstairs. And I don't know about you guys, when you got to kill these spiders, right? These motherfuckers are always in spots that are never in the easy spot. And so against my better judgment, like 2 nights ago, there was one at like the not molding, but if we had molding, where it would be, you know, like in the crux of the ceiling, right, the nook of the ceiling. And it was that thing of like, this isn't a big spider, but I know that I'm going to whiff it if I try to use the paper towel or the magazine. Like he's got the blocker of the ceiling in there. And sure as shit, I tried to get up there and he did, and he fell and he disappeared. And it's like, all right, well now we got a spider out for revenge. This sucks.
You're never going to see that spider ever again where you're going to constantly think about it.
Exactly. So today it was like the big spider, and I was like, I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna go get the vacuum. The vacuum's just the easiest way. You come up, suck them up right, and be done with it. You know what I mean?
That's smart. That's a really smart solution.
And so when I came down,
though,
I think it's honestly, well, I don't know, but I as soon as they get sucked in, all the oxygen gets sucked out of them, so they just die right away. So it's like, you know, maybe it's, I don't know which is faster, being smushed or being that. But then also think about how many times you tried to crush a spider and you get him, but he's still like, oh God, oh Lord. Yeah. I've never seen a spider in the vacuum tank being like, oh, help me, let me out.
Why don't you just do? I know it's difficult with like him being in the corner. That's always a tough spot. But why don't you do the glass over, get the paper underneath, and let him out, set him free?
I mean, literally what you just said. I'm a tall man, Barrett, but I'm not going to be able to get up on a chair, glass him on the corner because the glass will cut to the top ceiling, get the paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're never going to hit the right way.
Yeah.
Anyways, then I came downstairs and I forgot that I left a black dice on the floor because I was coming down here with spiders in the mind and I thought it was a spider for a second. It didn't like give me a jump scare, but I was like, fucking, oh no, it's just the dice. That's great.
I did a thing yesterday where, as I've been talking about, I've been playing Blades, which is a tabletop role-playing game similar to D&D, but it's a different system and a different like environment, right? It's more like Dishonored rather than just pure fantasy. And I got sent dice from G4. They sent it to me in a PR package, and I was very excited to actually bring my dice and play Blades with an actual set of my own dice. Yeah. The thing that sucks though is that I brought my dice. All the dice in here are like D20s, D12s, like different assortments. I only have one D6 in here. Blades is purely D6s. You only use D6s in Blades. So I came with one D6 dice and I never got to use it because all the rolls that I did yesterday involved more than one because I got a well spec'd out character. But that's my dice story for you.
Janet, tell me about your dice story. What do you got for us?
I don't have any dice stories really because most of the games I play don't. If they require dice, they just come with dice. Like I don't do like tabletop RPGs or any stuff that's like, oh, there's this campaign floating around online. I'm like, that's another level that I'm still at the level where like Isaiah has to distill the heavier instructions manual to me. The other day he was like reading through something and he's like, are you listening to this? And I'm like, I'll be honest, I'm not. But that's not because I don't care. It's because I'm not going to absorb anything. I need you to learn it and then teach it in a more human way that isn't just like reading 18 scenarios. So
Janet, are you in a
place
place
at the dice level
where you want to start doing more tabletop stuff? Not even role-playing games, but pure board games? Because both of us, we hosted the Skybound thing, right? And for like Skybound Tabletop specifically, which is the organization within Skybound that works on publishing board games, they sent us both an assortment of different board games. And so like I got Trial by Trolley, I got Wonderland's War, I got a few other ones, Kim Joy's Magic Bakery, and I have all these sitting in my apartment right now, and I'm fervently trying to organize a board game night with friends. And like I can kind of tell on their faces as I'm like, yo, I got Trial by Trolley, I got these games, and I also got like old games that I've had before, right? Like Exploding Kittens, and I also have One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and I really want to play these games. But as I'm like explaining it to them, I can see it on their face that they don't like, they'll do it for me, but deep down they don't want to play these board games. What's up?
Have me over for one night, bro.
Oh, Bear, you down?
Bring Alyssa over. She doesn't love Werewolf, but she fucks with One Night Werewolf because there's a little bit more logic played into that one. And so, like, yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna do it. I'm gonna organize this board game night.
Friends who are into those games. You just need to find the right friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there.
Yes, I am into it.
Yeah, because like Tim Schafer used to run a bunch of board game night kind of things up here, and then Dan Shu, formerly of PlayStation, formerly of EGM before then, right? He did a bunch of Bay Area stuff there, and that was the one that like Dan Shu is like one of the reasons I'm Greg Miller. Like, you know what I mean? I grew up reading EGM and being obsessed with Shu, and I'll never forget the first time he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, we do this board game thing I forget if it was every week or once a month or whatever it was. Do you want to come down and do it?" And I was just like, oh, like. No, under no fucking circumstance.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. I like board games. It took a while because so many of the instructions are so heavy, and like and some of my experiences early on with board games was like a very like arduous one, so it kind of turned me off to the idea of board games. But then I've mentioned it before on the show, but like during the pandemic I just kind of gave it more of a try, and Isaiah really likes board games, and now I have found a bunch to like. It's really just about, I think, finding what your style is, and there's so many like different kinds. Like of the things Skybound sent us, I've only gotten to Trial by Trolley so far. I did set up postal delivery service, but it was like 11:30 at night, and Isaiah's like, I'm exhausted, I can't do this, like I made a mistake, we should have set up this game. So then we just ended the night with Uno instead, which was its own bit of drama because everyone plays it differently. But yeah, Trial by Trolley was awesome, but you do need 3 people to play it, and I mostly just play with Isaiah, so we did have to go to my family for that. And it was that thing, and they like board games fine, but it was that thing where like I was like, hey, we really want to try this game. It's short. I don't know if it's good. So, like, give it a go. And we all had a good time playing it, and it worked out. But they were definitely like, I mean, they need somebody. Sure, I guess I'll sit down. And I'm like, thank God. And I was like, hurry, set it up before they can change their minds.
The funny thing is, I used to be that person that was kind of unenthusiastic about it. Like, when I lived in Seattle, my friend group would play board games all the time. And funny enough, like, this is like the friend group I had that were like all kind of funny best friends that like we first started hanging out by watching Marvel movies every week alongside MCU and Review leading up to Infinity War. And after we finished that, we were like, well, we still want to hang out, and that just ended up as us playing board games all the time. But I was always the person that I was either too into the game or I was just not into the game at all. Like if you know me, you probably know that I'm into deception stuff. And so like we would play One Night Werewolf, and I would get so into it, and I could tell that I was too into it. I was like, man, I need to dial back a bit. But then we'd play other games. Like I think it was like Ticket to Ride or something like that. And I remember just being like, that's fine. But like everybody else was super into it, and I was just like, oh no, I'm here to hang out with you guys. I'll play to play. But now that I've had years separated from my Seattle friend group, I'm like craving it now. Now I'm like, man, I really miss board games. Like I should have cherished what I had then. And so now
you
like
don't know
that's where I'm at right
gone.
now. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Greg Way, your PSN message touches on not knowing what you have until it's gone, kind of.
Nice.
Kozibear writes into
Really
patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and says, have you ever rented a video game so much that you ended up spending more on it than if you had just purchased it outright? And I would like to expand the question and the conversation to, have you ever rented a game and you liked it so much you went and bought it? Because I think that's maybe a little bit more plausible. Because again, I'm old and I remember late fees for video games at Blockbuster, but I also remember eventually when Blockbuster was just desperate.
Some games.
But you rented them, but was it to the point where there were late fees anymore? Or was it
They
just like, hey,
probably
fucking
were.
please come in? Okay.
They probably were, because I do know what you're talking about. When Blockbuster got desperate and everything was so cheap.
No
and there was
late
that moment
fees. Keep it
too.
as long as you want.
Everything was like $1. Literally, you could rent anything for like any movie for $1 for a while. And I remember thinking, you could have done this the whole time then. So you didn't need to charge me $8 for this one game in 1997. But I don't know if I've rented to the point of like deciding to buy it. But for me, like my most beloved rental story is renting Dragon Ball Z Budokai, because we did that for like one weekend, me and my brother. And that was the first time, I think I might have even told this story before, but that was the first time I played a game for so long that like my hands kind of hurt from playing it, because we just went like so in on that game for such a long time. Also, if you hear a truck outside, I'm sorry.
It sounded like somebody was like,
oh my god, that was driving me
flatlining.
insane, and I
Okay.
I didn't know if that was my house or if I needed to
that's
like
me.
mute one of you.
Anyway, I'm done with my sentence, so I'm gonna close the window and mute myself as I do that. But
Dragon Ball
Okay.
Z Budokai is such a good one. Like that was probably my
It's so loud. I'm gonna
intro.
close it.
Dragon Ball Z Budokai was probably my intro to fighting games, and so I love hearing that you got to rent that one. For me, mine is a non-PlayStation game. Mine is Wave Race, and obviously this is when I was young. Like it was early when I had an N64, and so I'm thinking like 99, 2000. And it was my parents taking me to Family Video every now and then, probably like once a month, maybe once every 2 months, to go rent a game because they happen to be there to get a movie or whatever, or maybe for my sisters. And every time you'd go, they'd go like, oh yeah, you can rent one game, and I would always rent the same game, and it was Wave Race 64. I couldn't get enough of this game, and I probably did rent it enough times to, one, I played it as if I owned it, and then also it probably would have been cheaper at that point to have just bought the game, because I'd rented it at least like maybe 7 or 8 times, and I got my time's worth with it. I absolutely loved Wave Race. The last game I actually remember renting, speaking of like Blockbuster on its way out, I think this still was from Family Video, which I don't know if Family Video is common now that I mention it. Like that says Blockbuster, similar kind of thing in the Midwest. I don't know if you guys had it in like Chicago area.
I remember having Family Video in Cleveland.
Okay,
but it wasn't nearly as big.
I don't remember in the burbs
Video.
of Chicago. It was either in the burbs of Chicago, it was Blockbuster, then it was Hollywood Video, and then it was the mom and grop shops were there for a long time before they got destroyed.
Yeah, I think Family Video was the one for me because it was literally down the street from me. And then also, I want to say there's probably like 2 or 3 Family Videos in Champaign, Illinois. And I do remember there being maybe the same amount of Blockbusters. So at least in Champaign, it was a bit more comparable. And there was maybe one Hollywood Video. Like I barely remember Hollywood Video. But yeah, at one of the last Family Videos in Champaign, I rented Until Dawn, and that was the last video game I ever rented.
That is a
Wow.
really rental.
Yeah, like this is like, what year did Until Dawn come out? I guess like I might have been
2016, right? Something like that?
2016. So maybe it was
I'll
like
Google
right
it,
after I graduated college, and like I was still on the, no, that sounds right. Yeah, because I had graduated and I was still on the job search, so I didn't have the
2015.
money. 2015. I didn't have the money to buy it outright. And I was like, damn, I'm hearing them talk about, I think I was probably listening to Beyond, or not Beyond, KindaFunny at the time. And I was like, man, they're talking so much praise about Until Dawn. I really want to play this game. Oh man, I've not rented a game in a long time. I wonder if I go to Family Video if Until Dawn would be there. And I went and it was there. And I was like, oh shit. And it was like probably like $3 or something like that for like 4 days. And so I rented it, played it, and I was like, this is fantastic.
You actually just re-unlocked a memory for me, because I was thinking of like my more modern rental stories. And I did try Gamefly for a while, which is like a mail-in rental service. I think
Netflix
they still
for
are
games
doing
back
stuff.
in the day.
Yeah, but like OG Netflix, like when you would mail the DVDs. And that was kind of a mixed bag. I reviewed it on my personal like YouTube channel like a number of years ago, and the problem there was like, too many of like the games you really wanted were like in too high demand. But I also heard for some people, like if you live closer to their distributor, you get like better service. So that was kind of mixed. But one thing I really loved with like no asterisk for rental in the modern era, unfortunately Redbox doesn't do games anymore. Also, I'm not sure if they even still how much they're operating at this point. But Redbox, I would rent stuff from there. And Blessing, you telling your story about Until Dawn, like it totally resonates with me, because that was also like me up until a few years ago when I was first, especially building my career in games media. Like when I first started doing that pivot, I didn't have like a lot of money or really any money, because I was making like almost nothing. I'm like, okay, I make like $500 a month from like this one place working for like a bunch of hours. So I really can't afford to like buy these games, and I don't have enough clout to get the codes for these games. So I played a lot of games marathon style like that. Like I rented Spider-Man 2018. Like that's why I like didn't like the most recent Spider-Man game on PS4. Like I didn't platinum that game because I only had it for like 2 days, and I beat the whole game in like those 2 days. And a couple of the like recent releases I rented like that. That's also how I played Resident Evil. God, was it 7? Biohazard.
Yeah.
That was also a rental for me. And actually fun. Now I'm wondering if I rented Until Dawn as well, because I might have. But yeah, it was super cheap, and it was like a really nice, affordable way. So yeah, if you're broke working to get into games, look up the rental stuff, because like some libraries let you check
libraries
out
are popping
games
off
too.
right now with the chat of a bunch of people who are talking about how they got stuff. Eric Miller says, check your local libraries, everyone. My local one has super recent stuff like Elden Ring on PS5, Deathloop, Kirby. Libraries rule.
Or work at GameStop and then borrow the games out, because you're allowed to do that. That's another hack.
There you
I
go.
want to say that at my college library, I might have rented Tatsunoko versus Capcom on the Wii when I was in college. I know I like rented some other stuff. None of those were bangers. Tatsunoko versus Capcom was a banger, but like none of the other games I got were bangers. It was like really obscure stuff. Like it was like Akiba's something, like one of those pop
Akiba's
like
Trip?
Akiba's Trip. Yeah, like games like that where it's like you don't hear many people talk about these games, but they just happen to be available because nobody else checked them out. Yeah, it's perverts. And so I got it, and I was like, I don't know what this game is. I don't think I'm liking this. And I just gave it back to the library. Most of the games were like those.
Banner sent it in the chat right now. That's why physical disc is important. Yeah, physical media. Shout out to physical media. I got the disc PS5 forever until they make me go into the clouds.
When was the last time you put a disc in that thing?
Let me try to if I eject it. What comes out of that? That's a good
I have the disc PS5 as well.
So many games are running through my head right
The
now.
only discs I've ever put in my PS5.
Freaking Uncharted, probably. I think
The only discs I've put in.
Wait, no, do I have that physical? Maybe I don't. Fuck.
Only PS5 discs I put in are when we did Ghostbusters in review, and I wanted to watch. I bought the 4K Blu-rays or whatever and put them in there.
That's the only reason I wanted the disc version was to be able to play
Fallout 4 on disc. That's what Janet's
Fallout 4 sitting in the PS5 right now. Do I know how to insert it back in? Not super confidently. I think the shiny part's to the right. We're gonna find out together when this disc is read.
I think the only disc I put in this thing has been Overwatch, and that's soon to not be the case anymore once Overwatch 2 comes out. Like, I don't think I'm going to use this disc for the rest of the generation.
I will say I don't own any physical PS5 games. Like, Chorus Like Cold Hard Fact.
In the chat, Ryan Pawala Higgins says, I rented the Italian Job on PS1 from Blockbuster and never returned it.
Hell yeah.
I feel like I'm part of their downfall.
Yeah,
probably. But you won in the long run. They're trying to chase you for those late fees, and you're just like, no, never again.
I'm not going to show up in this establishment.
Yeah, for me, I don't remember renting the same game over and over again. My rental story always goes, me and Poe rented Metal Gear from Blockbuster and went home and played that. And like when that rental period was up, that was a drop the game at Blockbuster and immediately went to EB and bought it myself. Like I needed that game, and still have it to this day. And then in terms of renting other games from it and like spending a lot of money on it, no, I think a lot about Spider-Man 2 on PS2. Where I adored that game and did everything in that game and loved it, and then sold it back to EB like I did everything to fund my addiction to gaming. And then I went to Maryland for an internship, and it was one of those like I'd come back to my depressed little room that I was renting from some old lady, and I would sit there and I was like, God, I want to play Spider-Man. I just went out and bought Spider-Man again.
That's my I rebuy games a lot where I sell them like I don't need this game, and then I'm like, you know what I need? The game I sold. My brother does that like even more infamously. I'm gonna start just stopping him from selling these games because
I did that like crazy.
He sold Splatoon and he's like, now I want it again to practice for the new one. I'm like, you can borrow mine. He's like, but then we can't play together. I think I'm gonna buy it again. I'm like, you gotta stop doing this.
Spider-Man 2 I definitely bought multiple times. Metal Gear Solid 3 I think I bought multiple times. The one that I should have known was a bad idea to sell back because it was always GameStop, because it was always like a GameStop deal where it's like if you trade in these 3 games, like the more games you trade in, the more like the more money you get back. It was Dragon Ball Z, speaking of Budokai, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, which I traded back to GameStop for an amazing price. I was like, wow, I can't believe they're paying me this much for this game. And that should have been a sign that no, that was because it's a very rare game. And so like if you go back and try to buy Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi, I don't know if it's still like this because I haven't looked in a decade, but at the time you could buy that PS2 that old PS2 game for like $80 or something like that used, because for some reason it was just really hard to get and really expensive. But yeah, like that was the one that I kept. I would sell it and I would go, fuck, I need this game because this game is incredible. Buy it again and then like for some reason sell it back because I was an idiot at the time.
But I mean, like, that's just how it is, right? Like, I think that's always the thing as you get older and we have disposable income and, jobs that you're able to spend on. I try not to forget. And I know it's such a conversation with used games and everything else, but like to play the amount of games I wanted to play as a kid, it meant like scrounging and just turning stuff over. Like I appreciate so many people who have collections and kept their collections their entire lives. I just don't know how they did it. Cause like my family was not well off. Like I was not able to get everything I ever wanted. Right. So it was like cool when I was like, I want to get a new system. It was like, I got to trade everything in from the old system to make it work financially to do this.
Yeah.
And like sitting there in my old days of the Funkoland newspaper and highlighting things that I had and like doing the side math of trying to figure out how much I needed.
Yeah, I looked it up just now on Amazon, and right now you can get Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 for the PS2 used for $260.
Jesus,
Hell
bless.
yeah, bless.
Yeah. I should have kept that game.
Expensive.
Expensive. I like this idea. Keep going, Barrett.
And the Pixels will gladly let you expense that, so you can go do a
Yeah.
marathon.
We our budget of
Just say you're doing a blessing show on
$0
it, Bless. Just say you're doing a blessing show.
Benefits.
Bulletproof.
I mean, obviously, it's a popular game. I'm sure that episode would get a lot of views, Greg, if you approve it.
It is crazy. Why is it so? Do you know why it's so expensive?
Honestly, the Kinda Funny
Because it's one of the
podcast
greatest
that we
video
put up
games ever
that
made.
if we did the Kinda Funny podcast and the headline was just Blessing spent $250 on some fucking game, that would do well. That would do traffic.
I mean, how
honestly.
many subs do you need to make that like fine, right? Like
We can make, we can do that Twitch. I'm down to do whatever content
you should absolutely
I need to.
Ooh, and then can I get what the fuck? Can I get Cubivore then for the GameCube because that's also very expensive.
Hold on.
What the
I haven't
hell
heard
is
of
that?
before.
You
made that game
It's
up.
a game where you play as like cube-shaped animals on the GameCube, I think, and for some reason it's like stupid pricey. Cubivore Survival of the Fittest. Yeah, it's like, oh god, it's like way more than Blessing's
How much
game.
is it?
Like $600 or something. Like
This is
at
an app.
least
Blessing, this is an
2,300
Atlas
on
game.
eBay somewhere.
Cubivore?
Yeah.
Cubivore,
Atlas,
yeah.
Atlas popped up when
Yo, it
Here's
looks
what I'll say.
dope, right? It looks fun. Like, don't you want? But like, when am I ever gonna buy this?
Here's what I'll
I
say.
mean,
just load up
both of
Minecraft,
you-
bro.
Both of you slack me these game titles right now.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is when we get to whenever we launch the studio and do the new fundraising thermometer and all that shit, we can. Here it is, Tim. Tim Geddes, co-founder of Kinda Funny. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. Blessing and Janet are trying to get us to expense rare ass games for them to play on stream and do stuff with, right? And of course, I'm saying no outright, Tim. But I think if we write them down and put them on the thermometer when it comes to Patreon fundraising time for the new studio, we could do it then.
What games are we talking about? I feel like that.
Blessing.
It is Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3.
You
which is
motherfucker. You crazy person. Yeah.
Which is it's $260 right now on Amazon used. Which I think is worth it.
Okay.
I mean, that's a debatable statement, but also I appreciate your enthusiasm for it all. I remember back in the day, in the Funkoland days, in the 90s, they used to have these little newspaper.
Yeah, I already mentioned these, man. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I love it that they would give out that would have like the prices of all the used games on it. And so it was kind of like the most fun thing to go to Funkoland as a poor kid, get the thing, start looking at it all, just start circling all the games that you're dreaming of one day getting, and then being realistic and being like, oh, okay, they're selling Super Mario Brothers on the NES for 9 cents. So I guess I'm getting that one again. But the number one highest priced game always was Dragon Ball GT on PS1. So Dragon Ball seems to have a legacy of being up there in the price. Yeah, I was always so surprised where it's like far and away. It wasn't Chrono Trigger. It wasn't at Earthbound. No, man, it was Dragon Ball GT.
So fascinating.
Now that's $260 for Blessing's game. Janet's is just a little bit more.
Yeah. Cubivore Survival of the Fittest. The range from like a loose disc would be like $340. It goes up to like $2,100 if you have like a really good copy of it. This is a game published by Nintendo and Atlas. And it's you play as, it's like little cube animals. You're playing as them, you're fighting as them, you're trying to get to the top of the food chain here. And here's the thing, when I first saw this game or heard of it, I was like, oh, this just looks like a cool game. I had no idea how much it cost. And then I saw that it was really expensive and I was like, I guess I'll never get to experience this. But with the magic of the crowd and the community, we could make that dream come true. Also, I have the GameCube GCHD thing already, so we can just put that in the back of the GameCube and HDMI output and stream it really easily.
We're saving money on that, Tim. See?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
that thing's like
$10 on
$150.
that.
That thing's like $150. That HDMI adapter thing, that is expensive.
There are other options too. I mean, it gets a little gray in some ways, but I know that some people, not all people, but there are some people out there that have a Steam Deck and they'll be able to emulate whatever game they want.
I'll never break the
Bye,
law.
guys. Have fun, Blessing. Have fun playing whatever game you want. Greg,
We'll do.
step your game up.
I fucking hate you so
He got
much.
you,
God
Greg.
damn it, he got me good on that one. Let's move on to topic of the
Let's get to the
show,
names.
ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about the top 10 most wanted PlayStation 5 games. Now, you might be sitting there driving your car, driving your van, running, exercising, cooking, playing a game, listening. You're listening to us somewhere. You're watching us somewhere. You're going to go, oh, easy. Number 1, God of War Ragnarok. Number 2, no, ladies and gentlemen. We're not taking it that way. Instead, what we're building today is the most elusive top 10. The top 10 games we want on PlayStation that are not on PlayStation, that have come to some other deadbeat platform, some other dying star that we need to get these IP off the rock and bring them to us. And again, I don't mean this to be I want Halo Infinite. No. We're not doing that. I'm talking
The
about
first joke I made.
in a similar, it was the first joke, Janet. I'm
Yeah.
stealing it from the Slack. But what I'm talking about is what we just had with Lake in Lego Builder's Journey. These games that you've heard good things about being on Xbox. You've heard good things about being on iOS, but there was no word that they were coming to PlayStation. Then all of a sudden, bam, here they are. They're ready to go. What's the other one I'm thinking of? There's one that got announced too recently.
Death's Door?
Short hike.
That's true. No, those are actually out. There's one that got
Right.
announced recently. Doesn't matter. Anyways, it'll come back to me eventually. Anyways, we're talking about assembling that. So what we're going to do is we're each going to pick 3. You all right, Blandet? All right, Blandet? 3
Yes.
different games.
Is that our new official name?
Yeah, when I want to talk to you both at the same time, I just want to save Blandet. Well, it wasn't me fucking up talking at all. Don't worry about that. Blandet is very much what I was saying. We'll each pick 3, and then the 10th one can come from the one, the only Barrett Courtney, CEO Jr. So, Blessing, you have a Steam Deck. You're well versed in every game that isn't out on PlayStation but came to the Steam Deck. What would you like to go first? It does not need to be from Steam Deck.
Yeah, but I think that is a good segue because I think my first one is probably going to be my obvious pick, which is Rogue Legacy 2. It is the freshest indie title that is not available right now on PlayStation, and it hurts my heart that it's not available on PlayStation because Rogue Legacy 1 is one that I played on the PS4, early PS4 era. You played it on the PlayStation Vita, right? Like it has that legacy that was PlayStation. And for me, your battery's low, by the way. You should probably turn on that Vita more because obviously you're not using it.
I was like, what did I do wrong? I was like, I charged it overnight, but I guess
The trick is to keep it charged at all times, all the time, or it will be dead.
But yeah, like Rogue Legacy for me was an early indie game that really got me into the indie side of video games because that was early PS4 era, PS3 era. You know, I was playing the big stuff. I was playing GTA 5. I was playing Last of Us. I wasn't paying too much attention to the indie market at that time because I think I was a bit late to the game on that. But when I got my PS4, that's when I started to open up to playing different types of games. And Rogue Legacy was one that was available on PS Plus at the time. And I remember listening to Beyond and being like, oh man, I'm pretty sure I heard somebody bring up Rogue Legacy on that show. Now that I have on PS Plus, let me boot it up and see if it clicks for me. And upon the first 30 minutes to an hour of playing Rogue Legacy, it clicked where I was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is bringing me back to playing games back on the Super Nintendo. This is, the 2D pixel art. I'm going through Castlevania style 2D action. Sure. But it was also so much more than that, right? Like it was a roguelite, right? It was a different sort of progression than what I was used to. It was the goofs and the charm of unlocking these different classes of characters, and it felt like something so special and so new to me. And I mentioned it's the game that got me into roguelites. I think yesterday on Gamescast, on the episode that went up this last week, you mentioned that it was the game that got you into roguelites as well. And I think that probably goes for so many people that entered the space with Rogue Legacy and then went on to play other games like Dead Cells, Hades, etc. I think for that, right, it's such an important indie game, but then also it's a game that I think would fit for so many PlayStation fans who were already fans of Rogue Legacy and want to continue to play that game on the platform. And Rogue Legacy 2, both me and you, Greg, have been playing it. Jane, I don't know if you've picked up Rogue Legacy 2 yet, or if you're going to.
Yeah, I'm like 4 hours into it.
Oh, hell yeah. So yeah, we've all been playing Rogue Legacy 2 here.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think the thing about this one that makes it click for me, because I really don't like roguelites or roguelikes or anything like that for the most part.
You put rogue in front of it, you don't like it.
Yeah, there's a few exceptions, but on the whole, like when I heard that this was like, it's a rogue game, I'm like, oh, I don't need to play it. And then everyone's like, it's so good. It's getting all this praise. I didn't even realize it was coming out. And I'm like, all right, let me check this out, because the thing that helps it stick for me is the fact that it is at its core a combat-oriented platformer, and I really like that style of game. And then because it does have like that light element where there is a little bit of that progression with things, and you have like these different classes you can swap between, and there's like, to me, I feel like there's a a clearer and more achievable line of progression based on my skill set and my like just what I come to games for, where I'm like, oh, I have this funky platforming challenge. Yep, I can do that. That's like a compelling thing to get good at for me. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I am a little bit still apprehensive on like how hard is it really going to be, especially like the boss battles. Like I haven't beaten the first boss yet. I did make some good progress the last run I did, so I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm really enjoying it so far, and that kind of surprised me in the sense that it's not really a genre that I like to dabble a lot into. But yeah, I like this one a lot.
But you knew we're the same person, Janet. So yeah, the fact that I
That's
said the
also
exact
true.
same
Yes.
thing about Rogue
I did
Legacy
see
1.
that you were
and then-
playing it. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is, you know, if Greg likes it, or also then it's convenient too, Greg, because when, you know, we gotta team up. We gotta take these like random, you know, indie
Wonder
games
Twins.
that are like weird story games that like look artsy and cool. We divide them, and then we come back and like, okay, which ones are worth playing, and then we can like have more experiences because we have the same mind. So
Exactly. Yeah. You know, there's a deep dive on Rogue Legacy, at least the deep dive on the beginning of Rogue Legacy too, over on the Gamescast up right now. So same with our Trek to Yomi review. That's the same episode. But yeah, like Rogue Legacy is like such a definitive Vita game for me. So it is such a PlayStation game for me that I would love to be popping trophies on it right now, playing it over here. But it is that weird one. And there's a couple games on my list that are the same way, where Rogue Legacy was on my short list. Rogue Legacy 2 is on my short list of things I want to come to PlayStation. I do want it to come to PlayStation. When it does come to PlayStation, I will definitely replay it or tinker more with it. But it's like, that is such a game I want almost on Switch, where it is, I want that to be such a mobile experience. And, you know, we're joking a lot about Steam Deck these last few days because you're playing Rogue Legacy 2 on your Steam Deck. And I did play Rogue Legacy on remote play for Xbox last night. And it works well and it's good, but I do want it in the way I had it on Vita, because like Rogue Legacy 1 for me on Vita is such a definitive being on the train to work, the bus to go out for that night, playing it there and just getting a couple things in. And exactly what Janet's saying about Rogue Legacy 2 applied to Rogue Legacy 1 of, even if I'm playing for 5 minutes, I feel like I'm getting something done. I'm getting more gold that I'm, you know, chipping away at and to get to the, maybe I won't, you know, earn enough gold for the big thing I want to make my runs easier, but I'll be able to do something smaller that I wasn't ready for or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's different from now playing Rogue Legacy 2 that we didn't necessarily have back when Rogue Legacy 1 came out, is that like cross progression could be an option. Like that, I think that would be the big thing that would make it awesome, is if Rogue Legacy 2 would come to PlayStation, which I'm sure it will at some point, right? Like I don't think there's like a big agreement between them and like other platforms that the game's not going to come to the other platforms. I would think that Rogue Legacy by the end of the year, hopefully fingers crossed, comes to PlayStation and Switch and elsewhere. But with that, you know, I think having it be cool, you can link your account and now you are making the progress on PlayStation that you're making on your Steam Deck or your Switch or whatever. Like I'm sure there's hoops. I don't expect that to happen. I'm sure that'll be weird for trophies and all these things. But if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Barrett, you might know this, or one of you guys might know this, that like Hades had some form of cross progression PC to Switch when that came out, right? I remember there being a menu option.
Yeah, that checks. That tracks.
Right.
I remember that. I remember something to that.
You can look that up. But I think if they're able to make that happen for that, right? Like I think we're getting closer to that becoming a more normal thing, where that could happen for a game like Rogue Legacy, and I think that would be so dope, because I like having the freedom, like even switching from my sit down PC to then playing on my Steam Deck and having that progression go seamlessly via the cloud felt like such a cool thing and was so convenient. And I would love to have that for I'm playing on my Steam Deck for 2 hours. Now I want to hop to my PlayStation so I can pop the trophies, or just so I can play with my DualSense, because that's the thing that I'm still getting used to now. I played so much Rogue Legacy on my PlayStation controller that now playing on my Steam Deck or with an Xbox controller feels weird, and it is fucking me up real hard in certain areas where I'm like, look, what are the buttons? Okay, no, I got to get used to using the Steam Deck as opposed to my PS5 controller.
Unless you are correct, by the way.
Okay, it is
It was just Switch and PC for
PC.
cross save.
Yeah,
that's the thing is I wouldn't hold your
cool
breath for it. I mean, like Cellar Door Games is bigger than a lot of indies, or that, you know, they're successful in a way startup indies aren't, but they're not super giant big. And I think that like that would be one of the things of, unless they're getting help from, I don't even know who published Rogue Legacy 2, unless they were getting a lot of help.
Published.
Was it? Yeah, I don't know that if they'd have the, because you figure when you do that, it's got to be all right, cool. Well, now you have to have like your Gearbox account that then goes across everything and yada yada yada. I just don't think you'd see that here.
But yeah, that's part of my wish list then, is to bring the PS5
and that okay.
And cross progression. But even regardless, I think it would just be cool to have on PS5, because the more people that play that game, I think the better, because everybody should play Rogue Legacy 2.
Agreed, 100%. Janet, what's your first pick?
I'm going with Patrick's Parabox. This is a puzzle game that is currently just on PC, and it came out. It came out I think just this year officially. It's weird because whenever you do Google, it says like a release date from a million years ago based on like when it was discussed. But yeah, it came out like in March, and it's essentially like a recursive puzzle game where you're solving stuff moving boxes within boxes. So what each screen kind of looks like, it's a gameplay wise, it kind of reminds me of Baba Is You in terms of the movement.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
But in terms of like the actual like puzzle itself, it's just about like, okay, your character is like a little square, right? With like little eyes. So it's like, okay, your character needs to be in one slot and you need to move like the other box to like another slot, or like you have 3 boxes to like move to the 3 box slots. So the puzzle becomes being able to like move around and manipulate them so that they don't get like stuck into a corner. But what gets funky and like wild with it is that there's also like a box that you can go inside of and then manipulate the boxes that way. And sometimes they end up being like kind of intense, like nesting dolls almost, where you'll be manipulating something. This sounds kind of like crazy, but like inside one box, and it also affects the world outside because again, they're like boxes within boxes. It's kind of like, you know, the idea of if you take a picture of a mirror, you have like that picture and like the other picture, and they go deeper and deeper in there.
Sure.
And that's how like a lot of the puzzles are structured, which might on its surface sound like a little overwhelming, but I think they lay it out really smoothly and they kind of onboard you like carefully with it. There's also like a nice balance of you have your straight through line and then also like additional challenge puzzles you can do. So I think if you want to 100%, there's like 350 puzzles, but if you just want a beeline, you can finish it in a couple hours. And it's just a really fun, good, smart puzzle game. I really just want it to come to really any console just to get it on more platforms. And again, I think that would be a fun one as far as the trophies, because even just playing on Steam, like there's been some kind of funky achievements that I've gotten that I'm like, oh, this is pretty amusing. And I could see people liking that kind of challenge on PlayStation, you know, stuff like you kind of break reality where like there's just all these boxes within boxes or like funky things you do there. So yeah, Patrick's Parabox, definitely play it if you can, but I'm really hoping that this one comes to consoles, especially PlayStation. Super fun game.
For my first pick, I want to put out Inscription. You know, a lot of people's game of the year last year, a roguelike deck building card game, right? I pulled it up over here. The official thing from Steam goes, Inscription is an inky black card based odyssey that blends the deck building roguelike escape room style puzzles and psychological horror into a blood laced smoothie. Darker still are the secrets inscribed upon the cards. Of course, this is one Andy's played and loved and talked a lot about. It was one that I just never got around to last year with Benjamin and everything else. I'm sorry. What was that, Bless?
I was gonna say I touched a bit of this game. I did a couple streams with it, and it's fantastic. I've not gotten to like people often say that, oh yeah, the game has crazy reveals and all this stuff, and I know Pachanet's played more of it as well. But like just from the pure roguelike card based gameplay, it seems like something that's like really cool. I had a lot of fun with it. It reminds me of like rule wise, it reminds me a little bit of Hearthstone mixed with like just a lot of weird stuff, right? Like you'll have some of your cards straight up talk to you and have personalities. If you die, you then get to create your own card with like certain traits of other cards. Like it has a lot of cool mechanics like that I'm sure Janet can speak more to.
Yeah, like it's definitely something that on the surface, it's, you know, a card game and like you have the map that you're moving across, but then it also adds like those additional layers with being able to, well, it's weird because some people like consider everything a spoiler for this game. So there's extra things.
Guard your ears if you don't want to hear things about it.
That might not be expected. Ultimately, I didn't end up sticking with this just because I felt like I couldn't get good enough at the card game. Like I didn't feel like I was able to grasp like learning it at the level that I need to learn at it. And then I just put it down and then like left. I kind of almost regret it, but then I'm like, it just became one of those things where I just walked away from it. The one thing that's interesting about this and the idea of it being on console though, is there are things it does that are somewhat PC specific. But I think they definitely would have to make tweaks to the game to port it over, because besides the fact that you kind of always do, there are like elements where if you want to execute the same idea, you would have to like change how you're doing it. I think they still could do it. Basically, without getting into spoilers.
Doki Doki or like Undertale kind of stuff.
It's like the weird like Metal Gear vibes, you know, of like crazy stuff, or like think about
turn
like,
off your computer, throw it out in the bathtub.
The funky stuff like when you had to, yeah, Isaiah's nodding off this, like he played and beat that game and loved it. You know, funky stuff like when you close the DS and it stamps the other side. I'm like, come on, I wasn't gonna. You turn the Switch upside down and your Pokemon evolves. It's like gets into some funky territory there, but I'm sure they could come up with something that would help that translate. And also, I like that they, I don't know if they would do this, but because I think it's a fan-made mod, but I feel like the developers have like been like, this is cool. Someone made a version that's just that kind of initial game, because again, as the game progresses, there's kind of different sections where the gameplay does change. So I think introducing stuff like that, like it'd be really cool if they had, Inscription like console edition or whatever they want to call it, and it kind of has maybe these additional bells and whistles that people could explore and get into.
Yeah. Everything I've heard, it's interesting, Janet, since you burned out on it, we're all the same person, and I do worry about it then if I would be into it. But it seems like the way people like I enjoy a good deck building game every now and again. It's not like obviously my preferred thing to go play a card game or by any stretch of imagination, but the story aspects of it, the talking cards, the twists people talk about, seems like something I'd be about. And since I missed it during a paternity leave and just end of the year last year, I'd be stoked to get it on console and have a shot there.
Yeah, and it's one that I went to the GDC Awards this last GDC a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, time's a flat circle, and it was specifically not even the GDC Awards, it was the Independent Game Awards at GDC, where they're going through and awarding a bunch of different independent games. And I kid you not, every single time Inscription would come up in the nominations, it got the leaders, the loudest cheers, right? Like people were going crazy for Inscription for every single category it was nominated in. Like it seems like if you are somebody who likes indie games or looking for or wants to keep up with like the indie darlings that are coming out year to year, it seems like a must play, or at the very least a must try. And so it's one that I want to go back to, especially now that I have the Steam Deck. I know this isn't a Steam podcast, but I got the Steam Deck. Have you seen it, Greg?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I think too, quick shot.
Can I borrow when I go to Canada?
No.
It was Polygon's Game of the Year, also Inscription, last year.
Great. Blessing, what's your next pick?
If that does anything for anybody.
Well, it's just he shoves the Steam Deck in my face again. No one did more for PC gaming.
I mean, it's just so big.
Greg
It just
Miller,
takes
and they
up.
just won't give it to me.
It just takes up all the space. It's hard to
Again,
ignore.
like Blessing just laying it on like I'm not falling
Just
into the
love
web
this
of Blessing's bit. Like this
love
is
this
what he
thing.
wants. Like he's playing one
He
game
wants
on that
attention.
thing.
It sucks. It's sad.
Yeah,
you know?
and he gets it.
SSD in this thing.
Yeah.
It's
Now see, now he's just naming parts of computers. Like this,
OLED. I don't know if it's OLED, but it might be.
it looks like a fancy Wii U gamepad. I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
Am I wrong?
Yes, you are. The Wii U
How's
gamepad.
it-
The Wii U gamepad is terrible. Like I think we're.
She said it
finally
looks like
far
a
enough.
fancy Wii U gamepad.
It's mixed. I revisited it recently. Anyway, other games.
Yeah, what's your next thing? What's your second pick of three?
My second pick. My second pick is going to be. Ooh, man, this is tough actually, because I have quite a few games that I
I
can
got some
choose
nice
from here.
stuff on here.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Half-Life Alyx.
Nice.
It's one that I've not played. I know Greg has played it, and I know like most people that have played it are like, this is a masterpiece. Like this is a must-play VR game. It's on the top of VR. And the reason why I pick it is because I think for PlayStation VR, specifically for VR2 that's coming up, I think it's going to need a killer app, and I think Half-Life Alyx could be that killer app. Not to discount the other things that PlayStation Studios are working on. I'm sure the Horizon game is going to be great. I'm sure like Astrobot will probably have a presence, and like you're gonna have other great PlayStation games. But Half-Life Alyx being a proven VR game that seems to be the VR game that people point to as this is a must play. This is a thing that's carrying the torch for what this platform can do. I think it could be so valuable for PSVR to have that, and I think it would be the thing to unite PlayStation VR players, where VR2 comes out. If you have Alyx there at launch, it is the conversation of, hey, have you played Alyx? Like, oh, you got VR2? Oh man, what'd you think of Alyx? Right? Like it is that kind of the way that Spider-Man Miles Morales, I think, really hit home during the launch of the PS5. I think Half-Life Alyx would be even more of that, where it is. Go for it, Greg.
I guarantee that this is a PlayStation VR2 launch game.
Really?
I do. Like, I think, like it. You're right. I've played this. I reviewed it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think it was the second coming of Jesus or anything like that. I think it's a great VR game. I'm not trying to take away, but I think like I didn't find it to be like this revelatory, insane, yada yada. It was great. It was, the best use of many of the VR things we've seen in the past in terms of it feeling natural, right? And like how easy it was to play and how easy it was to get into. And like for me, VR is always, if I do this, I always go back to Blood and Truth, the first demo I ever did for that, where I was hiding behind a pool table or a gambling table. Somebody threw a grenade at me, and I reached over the top, I grabbed it, and I threw it back, and I went back down, and it was like, oh, that worked. I didn't have to stop and think, and what's the mechanic? Yeah, like Half-Life Alyx is all 10s on that front of just like, oh, this feels natural, and I'm pulling the thing, and I'm doing exactly what I want. So like, I think that is a guaranteed PlayStation VR 2 game because it is that good. And Valve was vocal about like, listen, we want this out for as many people to play it as we want. And when it came out, they had some quote that was very much leading that like, oh no, it'll be on other things eventually. And I think PlayStation VR 2 will have the juice under the hood to actually make it be that way. And I think that's where you want to be.
How scary was it?
It wasn't. I don't think it was scary at all.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's head crabs
Because
and stuff like that, but it wasn't like there's way scarier VR games.
Okay,
Half-Life 1 and 2 I do find scary. That's a really good question.
Because I started playing it via like my Oculus Quest 1 and like the little PC link cable or whatever.
Yep.
But I didn't like continue with it just because I kind of happened not to. But I also did feel like, how intense is this gonna get? Like I'm like, it's too immersed. I'm too immersed. So I got kind of scared from it. But maybe I should go back then.
Yeah, I don't. I would go. I would. If you're looking for a deeper dive in that, I would go watch how me and Danny O'Dwyer did the review for it for KindaFunny on the Gamescast. And I don't remember, like, I don't remember any scares in there where I was like, oh my God, like clutching my chest kind of thing. But I also don't remember it super well, in terms of like I remember the ending really well because the ending.
I remember people like Alex Van Aken saying like there are some really scary parts in it.
But is he a big wuss?
Definitely yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But like
Greg, are you not? Are you secretly a horror boy? Like
I thought you were. I love horror. I talk about that all the time.
Then I can't relate to you.
For our audience, right? Like Alex Van Aken, I think would be on the similar scale of like Andy Cortez. Of like being scared of things. So like,
there's a wide chasm though that Janet has to be somewhere between of Greg and Andy.
Is Andy like really scared of everything?
Andy won't even watch trailers for
like,
scary games.
Yeah. Okay, I've been afraid of shadows before.
How do you feel of Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2 in terms of scary stuff?
I didn't play it.
What about you, Greg?
I didn't like Half-Life 1 or 2. So
really,
yeah, I know. When Orange Box dropped and I tried to jump in, I was like, these games are not fun to play. I do not like the control schemes of these.
I was pretty scared of the head crabs and like all the weird creatures in those games, and I'd imagine that stuff would get toned down a little bit for VR. I'm sure people know and will probably tweet at me and be like, no, they're fine, or no, they're still there. But I found that shit terrifying, and like I can imagine maybe in VR, maybe graphically it won't be as like intense or whatever, but like I can't imagine seeing a head crab in VR and like I don't know. Like that seems scary to me.
In the trailer, you see the head crab literally jump at your face. Like I would.
Well, that happens. Yeah,
does
that
it move like a head crab? Like does it have like the weird fucking animation?
Yeah, the weird like it's like a gelatinous puppy.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much.
That's a great descriptor, though.
Yeah, that's vocabulary right there.
That's what I do.
What's your next today?
Or what, you want to wrap it up there, boss? Sorry.
Yeah, well, one more thing, right, to the point that you're making about like Valve wanted to open up to other platforms, right? Like I think it's that. I think there's also like I think they've gotten the juice out of Half-Life Alyx in terms of it selling
100%
their device, and I think with that too, they'd probably be very okay with it, like in terms of business sense coming to other platforms because they will sell more software that way. And then also with PSVR 2 specifically, I think the technology will be there in terms of like the inside-out tracking, the new controllers. Like I think with what PSVR 1 was, I could see them being like, we don't want to jump through the hoops to develop for PSVR 1, whereas PSVR 2 has the technology that will probably be there, especially with like running off the power of the PS5 and all these other things. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it will come eventually. I think that'll make a lot of sense.
Janet, what's your next pick?
For me, and keeping with what Blessing set up with PSVR 2, I'm going to go Before Your Eyes. That game is a game I really adored. It came out last year. Currently only available on PC because you do need, like, for playing on PC, you need a webcam. There is a way to play without it, but it kind of like takes away from the core of the game, which is you on this journey. It's a first-person narrative, and you're in control of, like, you're kind of reliving a life story, essentially. And as you blink, things jump forward. So you're like, leave a scene with almost every blink. There are some exceptions, like the way they kind of add additional, like, gamified elements, for lack of a better term, are things like there'll be like a metronome that you can like look at, or there'll be some like ways to kind of extend your time. So it definitely doesn't feel like how it might sound where, every second it's just like jumping forward. They sort of craft it in a way where you'll still get the main beats, even if you're, blinking constantly or you don't try to linger in certain areas. And ultimately it's just a really like moving, like heartfelt story. I think the world and the environments feel like super lived in, and I was really invested in like the story they were telling. And then it has like a little bit of a twist to it as well. That I think packs quite a punch.
How long is it?
Oh, it's really short. It's got to be like an hour or two. Like it's a very short experience.
I just haven't actually kicked it out.
Yeah, and it's awesome. I know a couple people have said like sometimes they have tracking issues. I personally didn't have any tracking issues playing it. So again, definitely one that if you can play it already, do. But I think it'd be so good for VR, and I think especially with the inside out tracking, of now removing the drama that was the PlayStation camera. Like I know a lot of people described for VR1 having issues with like, oh, it's too sunny, and then I put it upside down and all this stuff. Kind of removing those barriers, I think it would be awesome. And again, I think it'd be a great conversation piece and an extra life for this game on that platform. I think it would fit the platform so freaking well. Again, I have no idea the challenges of maybe like getting it onto a platform like that, but yeah, I'd like to really see that. And it's totally different from like the Half-Life example, which I think you need. You want a variety of genre. This is a story game for feelings, and it's awesome, and people should play it, and I hope it comes to PlayStation.
I gotta make time for that one, because just watching
it's really
it,
good.
like,
I think you're gonna cry. I feel like you will
cry all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like you're gonna, it's like you just a little.
Even just looking at it, like you're looking like you're dealing with parents and stuff, and like the kids.
You're
I'm
gonna cry. Yeah, you're gonna cry. But it's good. It's a good game, and I think you'll like it. Like I love it, so I think you'll at least like it.
Do you think they're like you want it? This is us just making our top 10 most wanted things. Do you think there's a good chance it will come to PlayStation?
In terms of like logic for the platform, yes. In terms of like, do I have like faith in the different business elements of it? Not necessarily. Okay. But I'm sure that like I would imagine that developed by Goodbye World and published by Skybound, I would imagine they would want it on more platforms. But especially because it's such a specific kind of game, like there's not a lot of places it can go. And obviously like there's a PlayStation camera now, like you could like I have the PlayStation camera, but most people don't, and I don't think that would be a good way to. I think the VR platform seems perfect for it, given the inside out tracking and all of that. So yeah, I really hope to see it. Like it's probably going to be on my wish list for VR too forever, unless it ever shows up, because it's so good.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah, just watching that now, I really want to play it.
Yeah, you should play it.
My second pick, and I'm being a little bit more traditional, I guess. I would like Moonglow Bay to make the jump to PlayStation. Nice. Of course, I can't say it for the life of me. Moonglow Bay is on Steam and Xbox, and it's no, it's not Game Pass, right? It's just on Xbox straight up. It launched. It's another one that launched during my paternity leave. It's another one I'd been wanting to play nonstop in a similar way to Lake, and it's one that I started playing and was making time for, and then got caught up in Benjamin and everything else and haven't gone back to. And now I'm to that point where, all right, well, enough time has passed where why not just wait for it to come to PlayStation, or even Switch for that matter, because I think it'd be great in a handheld experience, which I know I could do with remote play and yada, yada. But Moonglow Bay, the idea is like you move back to town to help your mom out as, you launch this like, you're catching fish out of the ocean or the bay, the Moonglow Bay, and then you're making them into food and you're selling them there. And so you're improving the town and helping your family. And it's another game where, you're going through all the stuff and dealing with loss and death and everything else as you try to make your way and, revitalize the community with your fish and whatever you're cooking, and then make specific dishes for specific people. And it's like such a nerdy little cozy game, you know what I mean, that I love. That's the kind of shit I love in my games. I think it's beautiful. If you're watching right now, you see it's got this like almost 3D Game Heroes pixel art style to it. But it's just heartwarming, and I really enjoyed what I played of it. And like I said, just got distracted being a dad and haven't made my way back to it. And so I'm in the mood for when I go back to it, I do need to restart it. And then it just becomes a question of, well, do I restart it here, or do I, wait and restart it when it hopefully comes to PlayStation eventually?
I also got distracted by the journey, but yeah, I think this would be another good one for like, it's very checklisty. Obviously you don't have to do everything to complete it, I imagine, but and yeah, for the art style, I think it's one of the most striking elements of it. It has like that voxel art, so like heavy, like blocky look to it, and I was really impressed by like how fleshed out some of the like systems are. I only played like a few hours of it, but just like building out your boat and going fishing, and I think the cooking is like really quite in depth. They even have stuff like you can build out a little stand to like sell your goods, and there's like ways that you affect the town. Yeah, like I think it was really cool.
Yeah, you can donate them for this aquarium and stuff like that.
Yeah,
one thing I do want,
kind of Animal Crossing in that sense
100%.
too.
Yeah, you're making the town better. And what you bring up the cooking, and I think that is something I should have mentioned, right? Is like you see the town getting better right here as you do stuff, but the cooking, like when you fry a fish or you wash the potatoes or you chop, all have their own little mini games to them. And what I think is rare is that they were all enjoyable. Like I liked doing all of it. It's not like a one where it's an automated like cutscene where it just does it and it's done. And it also wasn't one that is like so minuscule and precise like Monster Hunter or something, which isn't a great example, but you have to listen to it as you spin your meat usually, right? Like you could fuck it up really easy. This one was like all right, cool. You could have done it better, but it's still great. And you can cook. It's not. I think you get. If it's been a while since I played, but I think you get ratings on how good the meal is based on how you did that and like how many stars or whatever and how much you can sell it for and shit like that. And then there's like an economy of like what's in demand and what's not in demand. So prices are changing constantly on what you're cooking and serving and stuff. Like it's this heartwarming game, this cooking game, this fishing game. Like it is taking a lot of things I love about Animal Crossing, but putting them in a different lens and ecosystem, which is cool.
Yeah, and Lena Rain did the soundtrack for it as well.
Who did?
I feel
Oh my god, that's the
Lena
seller for
Rain?
me. Now
I
I gotta play
say
it.
her name wrong every time.
Lena
that I
Rain
say-
or Lena Rain.
Yes. Yes.
She also did
I gotta-
the soundtrack for both Chicory and Celeste.
Yeah, which
Gotcha.
Chicory I
She's
still think
incredible.
is the best thing that she's done musically. I think Chicory might be the best. Celeste is really good though too.
I don't know who's
But
better
listen,
than Celeste.
Put on Chicory though. No, for real. Put on Chicory, Spotify, go there because I listened to it the other day and like there's some slaps.
When was the last time you went and listened to the Celeste B-sides?
Pretty recently. The beat I haven't done I don't think
because
I've done
the
the
B-sides
B-sides.
slap.
They go
But that's
hard.
also like
They go
it's
hard
cheating
in the
because
B-sides.
like it's
Oh my god,
remixes
we
from
should do
artists.
Blessing. We need to do a versus, but with game music. That's like super
I've been trying to
illegal
get
for the
to more,
internet.
do you want to do this? Because I've been trying to get Tamor to do this, and he ignores my messages.
Fuck
I
you,
was
Tamor.
trying to do this.
I'll do it because we could do just Lena Rain versus Lena Rain.
Well,
The
I would do Lena Rain versus Toby Fox. I think that would be a matchup.
Ooh, that's a
I think
good
that'd be
one.
an insane
I'll
match.
take
Megalovania
Lena in that.
on its own, though. Come on, Bless.
Well, okay, but that's the thing. It's like
Dude, any
it's
of
a
those
versus,
Undertale
so
songs.
it's who wins the most matches. So like,
Yeah.
sure, he'll put that out. Maybe I throw a weaker song just because I know nothing's gonna beat that song, and it's like it's a little bit
about
about the
strategy.
strategy of it. Yeah.
And
No,
for
we'll do this.
people
I'm
who
down.
may not keep up with Swiss Beats and Timbaland, right? Versus is basically like when two artists go head to head with each other and like they go back and forth, and it's basically their best 20 songs versus the other artist's best 20 songs, and they go back and forth, and people vote to see like, all right, who won more
Yeah.
rounds?
No, we should do
and
that.
usually it's like hip hop artists, and like I brought this up forever ago of like I would love to see video game composers do a versus, and so like yeah, Lena Rain versus Toby Fox, or like the Final Fantasy composer versus like the Persona composer, stuff like that. That I think would go crazy. Let's do it. Me and
Sure.
Jana will organize the stream.
Hell yeah.
If there's a
Keep it-
Persona episode,
All right, now Blessing, what's your third pick?
My third, I've been debating because I've narrowed it down to two. Like I have a lot of picks, but I have narrowed it down to two for my third. And I can make equal arguments for both, but I think I'm going to go with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Yeah, it is. Of course, it's published by Microsoft, and so like that. Like I think in terms of business, I think this is the one that where things get most shady in terms of will it actually come to PlayStation, but it has come to Switch, right? I think both Ori games are on Switch, and so they've opened up the gates in terms of their willingness to bring it to other platforms, and I think that's good, and I think it's not necessary, but I think with Ori, right? Ori is one of those games that is such a special indie game. Like there are games that I think about, like especially indie games that I think about that like, do they stand the test of time? Like years after playing this game, how much do I think about this game? And you know, funny enough, right? When I think of those, usually it's like Undertale or like Dead Cells or indie games where I'm like, man, I like this struck a chord with me that I can't get out of my head. I'm sure Chicory, like by next year, will be a game that I'm still thinking about a time away from now. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one that while reviewing it, I adored it, but there were like things with it where I was like, oh man, I don't know how I feel about like how it runs at points. Like I don't know how I feel about like some of the design of the mapping and the way that you can get lost sometimes. And that was me like with my critical eye, like at that time, looking at it through that lens. But the further away I get from Ori and the Will of the Wisps, the more special I feel that it is. Like, especially in terms of art style and story and presentation, how gorgeous it is. It is one of the most beautiful indie games I think I've ever played. And it is a game that I think should be on more platforms, just purely from how special it is. And especially in terms of Metroidvanias, right? Like Metroidvanias are not few and far between. They come out all the time. And we talk a lot about how like Metroid Dread is awesome, or which I guess is literally like it puts the Metroid in Metroidvania, right? But like you also talk about Hollow Knight, you're talking about Guacamelee, the list goes on in terms of indie Metroidvanias. I do think Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I guess both Ori games to that matter, stick out enough in terms of just how much they bring to the table in terms of heart, in terms of story, in terms of characters, in terms of again presentation, like how it looks, right? Like Barrett has it brought up on screen, and even as I'm looking at it right now, I am like, man, this is such a gorgeous game that I would love to see brought to PlayStation, because I think more people should just have access to it, and so that is my third and final pick.
Good picks.
Thank you.
Janet, what's your third and final pick?
Mine is Wide Ocean Big Jacket. What is this art? Like, I feel like it has the same art style as Before Your Eyes, but I'm not sure how you describe.
That's just
the art
all
style.
you're picking it strictly based on that.
Yeah, like it's like that weird, like, I don't know, it's like hand-drawn kind of flat almost look to it. But Wide Ocean Big Jacket, it is a pretty short indie game. It's like an hour and a half long. It's a camping story where the characters are like the uncle, the aunt, and then there's like the two kids, like the two 13-year-old teenagers that are like, dating. And it's a kind of like a coming of age game because a lot of the beats are about like relationships and growing up and kind of being at that, like, you know, I think 13 is such an interesting age because you are like exiting some elements of like the younger parts of childhood, but you're also still very much a child, but you're also kind of trying to be like older and cool because you're a teenager now. So it plays with a lot of that. There's a lot of I think nice, quiet, like intimate moments in that game. Again, it's kind of like a walking sim in terms of genre. And I think I like a lot of the extra layers of like storytelling it has in it. Like if you're watching the video version, there's sort of these like black screen cuts, which is like the characters' heads and like a couple bits of text kind of thrown in. It kind of has like a weird like cinematic layer underneath it that kind of like adds this almost like collage effect to like the way it goes about telling the story. This one's also already available on Switch after having been on PC initially. And it's just a really like special game. Like I also thought of it for like blessing your point of like indie games that stick with you. While this one I wouldn't say is nearly as like good as Ori or like it doesn't have the visual fidelity and things like that. It's a really well executed game with a really like intimate idea to it. And it's like one that once I played it, I've been thinking about this game for a while. I probably beat it like 2 years ago. And it's really good. If you like story stuff, I think you like it's kind of a must play. There's something just so charming and honest and awkward and good about it.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I've not heard of that one. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Thank you, Janet, for bringing that to my attention. And so, yeah, now my final pick. Honorable mention to Puzzle Quest 3.
No,
Okay,
wait.
honorable
mentions. I feel
All
like
right.
we need honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, you guys had the
I knew it
floor.
was
You
gonna
didn't use
happen.
the floor. I can't help you. You didn't use the floor.
And
all
Barrett
right?
hasn't gone yet.
You came crashing through the floor.
You can do honorable
Barrett
mentions and
hasn't
take
gone
it
yet.
away from Barrett.
Yes.
Honorable mention to Puzzle Quest 3.
God
Oh
damn
my
it.
God. Come on, Greg.
I'm going to say,
Ooh,
you know what I'm
tomatoes,
gonna do?
tomatoes.
Tomato,
Bear and
tomato.
Breakfast. I'm choosing Bear and Breakfast, which isn't even out yet,
Okay.
but of course announced for Switch, announced for PC.
I was wondering about that because I'm like, is that out yet? No, yeah. I want.
No,
to,
it's one of those that got announced. I feel like not too early, but
Mhm.
long. Well, yeah, I guess actually the announcement trailer I sent Barrett here that I have open is August 18th, 2020. So it's been a while. It's that traditional indie thing, right? But it's, join Hank the Bear and his 4 friends as they turn a rundown
Hell
shack into
yeah.
a cozy and quaint bed and breakfast for unsuspecting tourists. And so,
Yes.
it is bears, running a bed and breakfast. And like you see here, that you build out your room. It's, it's a management sim. It's a build out your house thing. It's got this really gorgeous art style. It's a game I'm super excited for, and I definitely plan to play, whether it is on my Steam Deck if I ever get one, or my Switch, but I'd obviously much rather have it on my PlayStation and be popping trophies as I went through it. Like, I just think it's a cool idea for a game.
I also have this there. It does have a release window of 2022, so hopefully it comes out this year. It's one of my like anticipated games for the year. But I just want to like shout out the stark contrast. Also, it's getting dark over here in this trailer. What's going on? Some secrets. But I love the stark contrast between Greg, like the games that we bring up and the games that blessings like Half-Life Alyx, like one of the most critically acclaimed like VR like intense like games, and then it's just like, yeah, so you're a bear, and anyway, you're making pancakes for people, and I'm like, yes, let's go. But yeah, good pick.
Okay.
I'm trying to be a man of the people. I'm like, all right, what would make sense for the PlayStation platform?
If all of those came, though, I think it'd be a really good widespread suite of games.
For sure. For sure.
So
I'm just trying to
get on it,
process
PlayStation.
still that Bear and Breakfast was announced like almost 2 years ago. I still I remember you and Joey reacting to like this announcement like it was yesterday. Like y'all were fucking stoked for
It's
this.
definitely not. Well, it's also too like we are stoked. I forget if that announcement trailer is the first time we saw it. You know how many indie games put out announcement trailers, they fly under the radar until they're on an ID at Xbox or a stage, right? Bear and Breakfast is a laid-back management adventure game where you play as a well-meaning bear trying to run a B&B in the woods. Let's fucking go! You kidding me? Yeah, hell yeah!
With Lumberjack, another bear game slated for 2022. Basically, if there's a bear in the game, I have it on this list.
You got to put on your list, yeah. All right, Barrett, what is to round out our 10th, to give us our 10th game? What are you picking?
Speaking of bears.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking about this because I felt like this was a tough pick for me. just because I'm not as like up to date on just like the cool little indies, right? The hardcore games, all that stuff. And I was thinking of like, PlayStation's just got a lot of games already. Like, what do I really need for to come there still, right? And so I was thinking of like for PlayStation 5 specifically, because that's like that's what the topic of the show is called. That's what most likely the headline's going to be: PS5's most wanted games, right? And the easy answer, Persona, the older Persona games, but I feel like those are probably I have a hunch, Bless, that we're going to get the entire Persona series on the new version of PlayStation Plus. Unfortunately, not Persona 4 Golden, though, because that's a Vita game, but we'll probably get the original Persona 4. So I was like, if we're getting them soon, right? Like, I don't want that to be an answer. It's too easy of an answer. I was thinking of, like, maybe shouting out, Portal, the Portal collection coming to Switch. I would love to have Portal on
I forgot about that
hardware.
That's a really
but then
good call.
Y'all brought up Half-Life Alyx, and we're already getting to the Valve. I didn't want too much Valve representation on this list, so I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Syndicate for the PlayStation 5. Now you may be thinking, well, isn't Assassin's Creed Syndicate available as backwards compatible on the PS5? It is. It runs like absolute garbage, and is very like harmful for the eyes almost, with like how bad the glitching is for Syndicate specifically to play on the PlayStation 5.
Wasn't this one of the games when they made the big list of like, thousands of games will be at backwards compatible for the PS5, and Syndicate was like one of the few games where they were like, actually no, this isn't gonna work
out. Yeah, exactly. And so I think this game deserves the treatment to actually work on the PlayStation 5. Of course, you can check out my full thoughts on it in Assassin's Creed in Review that we released last year, a little over a year at this point. I do think it's the best kind of original, like classic structure of Assassin's Creed games, with the open world and taking out towers and all this stuff before they got into the more like modern stuff with like Origins and stuff. I really think Syndicate is the peak design of that classic Assassin's Creed formula. I think more people deserve to play it. I think it's unfortunate that it runs like absolute garbage on the PlayStation 5. So that is my official pick. Yes, you can technically play it, but your eyes are going to hurt after like 5 minutes of playing it on your PlayStation 5. No joke. Like there are like still posts about it. Like I was looking at posts like from those, like a month ago still being like, like I can't play this for more than like 10 minutes without like my eyes just absolutely hurting. Like you can technically play it. It's just like all of the visual glitches just like are obnoxious and obscene. So that's my official pick.
Ladies and gentlemen, then our PS5 top 10 most wanted games looks like this then. Rogue Legacy 2, Patrick's Paradox, Inscription. That's where I started, right? Yeah. Then Half-Life Alyx, Before Your Eyes, Moonglow Bay, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Wide Ocean, Big Jacket, Bear and Breakfast, and Assassin's Creed Syndicate in no particular order. That's a hell of a list. That's a good, lots to look forward to there. And the game I was talking about at the top that I couldn't remember, Unpacking. Unpacking is another one I had started on Xbox. I had enjoyed it, fell off because of the baby, and then they announced, "Oh, well, we're coming to PlayStation soon." And I was like, "I will wait to finish you then when I get over there."
Have you?
And
have you?
It's not out yet.
It's not out yet.
No, they said we're coming to PlayStation soon, and then they kind of
Really?
went quiet on when it's coming in.
Oh.
Unless I drastically missed something.
I feel like it was because it's out on Switch already, right?
Right. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well,
since Greg did his honorable mention, honorable mention to Sunset Overdrive, which I was debating. That was the one I was debating between that and Ori. And also, Katana Zero, Golf Story. And
I'm glad you didn't pick that one, Bless, because I feel like that would have been too easy,
See, I was in a whole story of like from like Puzzle Quest 3, I want to give a shout out to, but it's such a perfect touchscreen game that I just don't I don't play it on Steam. I can play it on Steam, and I know that like, well, I don't play many PC games, but like even when I did it here for streaming, I was like, oh no, the mouse I move too slow with. I want to move over here. I can only imagine with a controller how much slower you're going to be moving on it. So that's why I put it. However, though, Bless, even though you're trying to thumb me in the eye right now, I do want to give tip of the hat to Port It to PlayStation. A segment we tried to get off the ground, and then we turned into a topic of the show right here. So Port It to PlayStation, everybody.
Never figured out the acronym though, because
you always wanted it to be PSP, and that's why it's stalled every week. Yeah, every week you'd be like PSP
Port Software PlayStation.
When I brought it up in Slack, where I'm like, oh, we got to make sure we shout out Port to PlayStation. That's basically what this is, just a TOTS version of Port to PlayStation. And I wrote out, give a shout to PSP, and then I reread it, and I'm like, Port it to. There's no. I'm just gonna call it Port to PlayStation. There's no S there.
That's what killed the segment. That's what killed the segment.
Yeah.
You know what would kill Kind of Funny? If you didn't support us on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you can kick us a few bucks, watch the show live, just like Cooper is, that dude Cam is, and Bander SN is. Bander SN found roaches in his house today. Everybody send him some love.
It's
Oh,
horrifying.
no.
Yeah, I know it's not. You don't want that at all. Anyways, though, if you went to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you could be watching live. You could write in to be part of the show. You could get the post show we do, and of course, you could get the show ad free. But guess what, Jack? You're not on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So here's a word from our sponsor.
Shout out to Chime for sponsoring this episode. No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is more than just about getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. You can get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. You can get started at chime.com/kfgames. That's chime.com/kfgames. chime.com/kfgames. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. Shout out to Babbel for sponsoring this episode. For most of us, learning a second language in high school or college wasn't exactly a high point in our academic careers. Definitely not me. I took Spanish, didn't do well in it the first time, did okay the second time. You know what? We'll move on. Now, thanks to Babbel, the language learning app that's sold more than 10 million subscriptions, there's an addictively fun and easy way to learn a new language. Whether you'll be traveling abroad, connecting in a deeper way with family, or you just have some free time, Babbel teaches bite-sized language lessons that you'll actually use in the real world. Greg Miller has been learning French little by little, and now when he goes back home to Canada to see Jen's family, he'll be able to communicate better. Isn't that a lovely situation? Babbel's 15-minute lessons make it the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you to improve your pronunciation and accent. Right now, you can save up to 60% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/kindafunny. That's BABBEL.com/kindafunny for up to 60% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. One more time, babbel.com/kindafunny. Shout out to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like walking your dog in public without securing them on a leash. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine, but what if one day your dog runs away or gets dog-napped? It's better to be careful, especially when it's as simple as using ExpressVPN. We've been using ExpressVPN here at Kinda Funny for years now. Me personally, I've been using it, and I know that my internet browsing is secure. It just gives me that peace of mind that I need. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, your online data is not secure, but ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so they can't, and it's great. I use it on my desktop, I use it on my phone, I use it everywhere that I use the internet. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. You can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN at expressvpn.com/kindafunny. That's expressvpn.com/kindafunny. EXPRESSVPN.com/kindafunny.
I'm sorry, did you just dab?
He dabbed.
Did
I
you
saw
just
it.
dab?
But honestly, he was kind of
Greg?
smooth with it. I'm not gonna lie, he was a little bit smooth with it.
Thank you very much.
I approve. I'll give it
I'm
a thumbs up.
conflicted. I'm officially conflicted by the dab.
I know it sucks to see somebody come in and just be a man who can exist in any time period. You drop me in the 20s right now, I'm great. You drop me here and I'm dabbing left and right. Me and Doja
I mean, to
Cat
be
were
fair,
out
I don't
there.
think the
The dab
dabs.
is late.
I was gonna say the dab doesn't exist in the 20s. That was
Well,
very
no,
much.
that's what I'm
20
saying. I'm
There's
saying I could
several
exist in the 20s with like my top hat and my monocle, and like oh man, the Titanic sunk a couple years ago. That sucks. Or I could exist now dabbing away with Doja Cat. That's what I was driving at.
I'm pretty sure Doja Cat does not hit the dab, but I.
No. She would though, and if she could pull it off.
She would, and she would pull it off because
Yes.
she's Doja Cat.
Yeah, Doja Cat's great.
Blessing. Let's talk about this week in PlayStation.
I want to start off asking the question, could PlayStation acquire Square? I asked this because earlier in the week, me and Tim had a long conversation about on KFGD about the acquisition of a bunch of Square's Western studios from Embracer Group. I'll go ahead and read a quick article from Adam Bankhurst at IGN that goes like this. Embracer Group has entered into an agreement to acquire Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, and a catalog of IPs including Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, Legacy of Kain, and more than 50 back catalog games from Square Enix Holdings for $300 million. Embracer shared the news in a press release saying this acquisition includes roughly 1,100 employees across 3 studios and 8 global locations. The deal, if it goes through, is expected to close during Q2 of Embracer's financial year 2022/2023. Quote, "We are thrilled to welcome these studios into the Embracer Group. We recognize the fantastic IP, world-class creative talent, and track record of excellence that have been demonstrated time and again over the past decades. It has been a great pleasure meeting the leadership teams and discussing future plans for how they can realize their ambitions and become a great part of Embracer," says Lars Wingfors, co-founder and group CEO, Embracer Group. Square Enix has shared some of its reasoning behind the decision to sell Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal to Embracer Group, saying the transaction will allow the company to invest more in the blockchain, AI, and the cloud. And having the discussion on Monday with Tim, the thing that Tim floated, which I thought was very fascinating, was the idea that this could be a process of Square offloading these studios to lean themselves up to be more appropriate for acquisition, and that could also lean into this them explaining that, hey, yeah, we want to invest more in blockchain, AI, in the cloud because those could be short-term solutions to them boosting up their price as well. I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys think that this is a plausible explanation for what's going on here, or do you even want to see PlayStation acquire Square Enix?
I don't think they're going to, but I would be down just simply because of Life is Strange. Like, they still have Life is Strange, and I'm like, Life is Strange was like, I'm still just so blown away by how good True Colors was that I'll follow Life is Strange into the sun. So if that means we're getting Square, why not?
To add more context too, right? The reason why Tim brought up PlayStation specifically, it actually stemmed from a question that was written into KFGD, which was posing that, hey, Final Fantasy 16, PlayStation exclusive, right? Final Fantasy Remake, PlayStation exclusive. Forspoken coming up, PlayStation exclusive, right? And like those games are also coming to PC, or at least Forspoken is coming to PC. But you've seen a history of PlayStation partnering with Square Enix for these bigger IP, these bigger titles to come exclusively to the console, which is where a lot of the idea is stemming from. But Greg, for you, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's been talked about a little bit more openly once this all started, but like when I talked about the 3 rumors I had heard, and one was an acquisition, this is the one I had heard. I had heard that PlayStation was acquiring Square, and I heard that from multiple different sources. So is it happening? Is it not? Was it just scuttlebutt? Was it scuttlebutt? Maybe that, how this is. You're hearing things third, fourth, fifth hand. Was it that Square was trying to sell their Western studios here, and that was the rumor, and was Embracer Group talking to them, and so was PlayStation? Like, there's a million things, so it's not worth like take everything with a grain of salt. Yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Like, that is what I had heard, though, is that PlayStation was trying to buy Square and acquire them, and it gets into this weird thing where when the conversation was happening about that, and there was a rumor, the reason, as outlandish as it may sound, even though we live in a world, right, where everything's getting bought, all sorts of companies, Activision, Blizzard, and Bungie, and then Bethesda, right? We've seen big stuff happen before. It was that thing of looking at Square and going like, oh, I can see how that would work, right? Of course, there's so much talk about like how, Square, a Japanese company, and how they wouldn't want to sell to Westerners, but PlayStation still is a Japanese company, even though they've moved HQ to America and yada, yada, yada. You could see that, but then to look at the studios, like Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, you can see where that would fit in with a PlayStation first party. But in the same breath, as we just talked about, you can see where the Japanese studios also fit in with PlayStation, right? Because they already are running these exclusives for them. And so that was one of the reasons of like, oh man, that would make a lot of sense for them to buy them. So when this news initially broke, I was like, oh, maybe the rumor was half true, and it was that Square was trying to sell these studios, PlayStation was looking at them, but actually went to Embracer in the end, kind of thing. And then when you have the third knee-jerk reaction to it of like, well, maybe it is that, they're trying to get rid of certain things to make themselves leaner, to make themselves more profitable, to make themselves whatever, to then go and sell. It's 2022. And if history of video games have taught us anything, but more recently, these acquisitions have taught us anything, it is that anything can happen. And so like, why, I'd sit here and go like, oh, no way. You can also go like, oh, I honestly could see it happening. I could see them buying it to have Final Fantasy, to have Life is Strange, to have every other, classic Square Enix property, especially in a world where Xbox is, throwing around money and wait to get things exclusive. And even though Square probably wouldn't ever sell the Xbox, it would be that thing of like, what a great get for PlayStation to be the only place to get these games.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up as we talk here because we talked about it earlier in the week too that PlayStation just hired somebody to be in charge of acquisitions, right? Like to actually lead that charge that PlayStation is making because it seems like that's the thing that is becoming more and more important to both Xbox and PlayStation and like these big publishers, right, including Embracer. It seems like acquisition is becoming more and more of the strategy as we've seen over the years, and this would not surprise me based on all the things that we've talked about here. The thing that does surprise me a little bit is that they decided to sell Square Enix and Eidos Montreal and Square Enix Montreal to Embracer Group, just because I could, like you mentioned, Greg, I could see those studios fitting so well with PlayStation, right? Like we've been talking a lot about like what happens with Uncharted, who makes the next Uncharted. Like I could easily see Uncharted in Crystal Dynamics' hands based on the work they've done with Tomb Raider and them actually doing a fantastic job with it.
For
like
sure.
them turning it into something that feels fresh and new that could be a bit more systems based like Tomb Raider is, like crafting and all that stuff.
And it would be like totally fucking you can close your eyes and see this going straight off a fucking cliff. But then you could also give it that, 10% of being really cool, but like a Tomb Raider Uncharted crossover that isn't hokey and stupid, but is like, hey, here is this adventure we're doing. What if the next Tomb Raider was Tomb Raider Uncharted and it was like Nathan Drake is involved, not like a playable fashion, right? Nate's story's done, but he is like, whatever. I don't even know. He's Sully. He's just a part, even if it's just crossing paths. Like she needs something and she goes and talks to Nate, to get some artifact to move the story.
She opens
along.
up a tomb and Nathan Drake is inside.
He just rocks.
Wait, I'm confused. Where did we get the isn't Tomb Raider a part of Embracer though? No.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. But if
they
hadn't sold off and they had been sold to PlayStation that way,
yeah. And
now instead, I made this joke online. You're gonna get
Strange crossover.
I said you're gonna get Lara Croft raiding vaults in Borderlands, going after the
get Lara Croft
up Pandora. What are we gonna get?
Lara Croft and SpongeBob, because Embrace Group is owned by.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's a lot of reckoning. Yeah. Exactly. To bring in the article I was referencing before, right? This is from a few days ago on Video Games Chronicle. It's Chris Scullion who's talking about how PlayStation is also hiring for an acquisitions manager. They've not actually hired the role yet. Where it reads, Sony is seeking a director to help it make acquisitions and investments in other companies in the games industry. As spotted by business analyst Roberto Serrano, the director of corporate development listing based in Sony's California office, says the successful applicant will be mainly involved in identifying potential future acquisition and investment targets. Quote, Sony Interactive Entertainment, PlayStation, seeks a highly qualified director, corporate development. SIE's corporate development team works closely with SIE's management team and is responsible for identifying inorganic growth opportunities, including opportunities through acquisitions, investments, or joint ventures, the ad reads. And so, yeah, like they're actively now looking to hire folks that will lead this charge for them. Which could result in a lot of things. I think the Square Enix thing probably is more further along than even what this this hire they're making would be involved with. But
for sure,
even then, like this is a signal that it is.
They ain't done.
Yeah,
like, they ain't done with this by a long shot.
Yeah, like like every single day I forget that Bungie was already acquired at the top of the year. And like I was reminded today on Twitter, I was like, oh shit, yeah, Bungie's PlayStation now, and like stuff like that isn't gonna stop. And I think Square Enix owned by PlayStation would be a very big move. I'm still in a place where I think the idea of this big industry consolidation to like these gigantic companies, right, even including Embracer, right, but like Activision going under Xbox, Square possibly going under PlayStation, these Square Studios going under Embracer, like all this happening is a bit scary just from the idea of, man, all the like these different studios that all have their IP spread out and all their talent spread out are now getting gobbled up. But I think the thing is, as that's happening, so many studios are rising from the ashes. Like I feel like every other week we talk about how there's a new AAA indie studio that has launched that is working on a different theoretical Star Wars game or a different thing. Like you're still having those happen, which is exciting at the same time. So I'm not necessarily doom and gloom when I hear this news, especially because I do think that with those IPs under PlayStation, I could see Final Fantasy, like the other Square, the other IPs on the Square side of Square Enix being treated well under PlayStation. Like I don't think they would squabble those IPs necessarily.
For sure. I mean, PlayStation's great at that, right? And that's the biggest concern. Like, and I know this is more about what PlayStation could possibly do, but the biggest concern about the Embracer Group and the stuff they're getting, where again, it's like, oh man, it's awesome that Crystal Dynamics, who, definitely shouldn't have made an Avengers game, but did, and then Square is like, this doesn't, like, where everything went wrong with Avengers, and if that's at the top and if that's at Crystal and yada yada yada, we can even take that away and just look at Tomb Raider, which was a great reboot, some great games that were constantly met with, this has not met our expectations.
Yeah.
And so if they could have gone off and done IO Interactive style Hitman and, had set their own expectations and yada yada yada, great. But like, is that what Embracer Group's going to be? Is Embracer going to let them do that? Like, what Embracer's great at buying old stuff right now and and putting out remasters of it or whatever. But like, are re-releases of it? Are they going to foster that kind of creativity? And where's that going to go? And we have the proof isn't in the pudding yet. We don't have the pudding.
Let's talk about our second story for this week in PlayStation. What PlayStation announcements could appear at Summer Games Fest? Just today, Jeff Keighley and the Summer Games Fest Twitter account put out the tweet of Summer Games Fest Live is happening. I'm going to pull from a press release that I received in my email this morning to break down the deets. It goes like this. Summer Games Fest Live featuring Day of the Devs SGF edition returns on Thursday, June 9th, streaming live from Los Angeles at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Fans can tune in via all major streaming platforms, including YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and more global outlets. The stream will also be available on co-streams from creators around the world. Summer Games Fest is a fan-first celebration of the future of video games, headlined by an extensive roster of digital events from the world's top game developers and platforms. Hosted by Jeff Keighley, Summer Games Fest Live will feature world premieres, trailers, news, and updates from the world's top game developers and platforms. Last year's Summer Games Fest Live event, and this is interesting because they're referring to last year's thing as Summer Games Fest Live instead of Summer Games Fest Kickoff. They're just renaming it to Live, seemingly. That event
Better name.
It is a better name. I think it is a way better name. That event featured the world gameplay debut of Elden Ring by From Software, the announcements of Death Stranding Director's Cut on PlayStation 5 with Hideo Kojima, and Tiny Tina's Wonderland from Take-Two, as well as appearances by Ryan Reynolds, Jeff Goldblum, and Giancarlo Esposito. I forgot all about that. And performances by Weezer and Japanese Breakfast. The reason why I bring up the PlayStation angle of it is they mentioned, right, you got Elden Ring there, you got Death Stranding Director's Cut there, right, which is a direct PlayStation thing. And then you also, they didn't mention it here, but you also got the announcement of Deviation Studios being the new studio to be partnered directly with PlayStation. So for this upcoming Summer Games Fest Live event, that is quote unquote Summer Games Fest kickoff for this year, do you guys think we see something PlayStation?
Well, why did you cite
Probably.
Elden Ring?
Elden Ring just is another announcement. That's not
Okay,
a PlayStation.
cool. Just
thing.
you mean like the caliber of announcements or whatever?
Caliber of
Okay.
announcements,
Just making sure
yeah.
I'm on the same page. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine like something. I'm trying to think of what that would be because I do think, well, Deviation Studios, I think, was kind of, it was major in that it's like a big deal, but it was minor in that I feel like we haven't really had that fully come to fruition in a way that ended up being like a big talking point for us, right? Like,
For sure.
it was like, oh, this happened. And then like, that's kind of it. That's not to say that it's not significant or that we're not going to see like some great projects from that team, but it's just kind of like, all right, cool, like more to come later. But yeah, I'm not sure what it would be. Offhand, another director's cut. I don't know. I mean,
there's still
maybe?
some director's cuts in the tank.
maybe
Yeah,
like
like directors or Last of Us.
oh,
That'd be a
yeah.
banger.
Yeah,
You're
they
gonna have
would.
something PlayStation there in terms of like exclusives, but I don't know if does that mean it's a first party exclusive or does that mean like, well, again, I know they say everything's first PlayStation Studios if it's exclusive.
Maybe then to that point, like a remake or director's cut, and then like some type of tease of what are we calling it? Phase 2, right?
Yeah, Phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phase 2.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, would they burn a Spider-Man trailer here? Would they burn a Wolverine update? Would they burn something Ragnarok if they were ready to announce Ragnarok?
In a world where they're not doing a PlayStation showcase in the summer, I think like
And
God of War
that's the
Ragnarok
big
would
question,
The
right?
release
Like,
date would be good if they have one.
I also don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility to see something PlayStation VR 2 here. Not the full everything, not everything in the world, right? But like this would be a great spot to show it and talk about it, and then tease that, and like, not even tease. I guess you show a trailer hyping up PlayStation VR 2, and then you know weeks later, next week, 2 weeks, whatever, you announce when you're doing your event to announce what it is and show it. Do the PlayStation showcase for it.
I feel like they've been really, and I don't know, we're very cursed with PSVR 2 on this show.
Every
so
time we
maybe
say something that goes wrong, yeah.
maybe I shouldn't even say anything, but I feel like they've been really big on not talking about PSVR 2. Like the vibe is that they really want that to be kind of its own separate bucket, which isn't necessarily, I think, a bad idea or a bad strategy, but like, because everything has been so not PSVR 2, not PSVR 2, I'd be a little surprised if they did a teaser for PSVR 2. But I mean, they have to at some point mention when they're talking about it, and like, why not have it on a big stage? But at the same time, maybe that's not I don't know, compelling enough, or maybe they don't
Yeah,
want
see, that's
to
what they wouldn't do. They'll
flood the
do. I would
market
think
or
they
something
do.
with that.
You do a trailer again, going through the product shots again of it, like, right, like we know what these controllers look like, we know what it looks like. You do some cool spins and stuff like that, and talk about it, and again, drive home just the information about it. But then, yeah, you don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it ends with catch the full PlayStation showcase on blah 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 blah.
I
Unless
think
it's imminent, unless they were going to do something they had already announced that they're doing something like Xbox is doing.
I guess I don't know if we've talked about that, right? Like if PSVR 2 really is the end of this year, for judging by the cadence that they've been revealing stuff for it. Is that the summer showcase? Like, do we get to July and that it is the PlayStation VR showcase as opposed to just the general PS5 thing that we've been theorizing?
I mean, that would have to be. Like, there's a lot of different things on the track, right? Where it's like, if PlayStation VR 2 is this year, yeah, it needs. And like, now that we're saying all this, yeah, we are so cursed. Tomorrow there will definitely be a PlayStation blog post on Friday morning about all this shit. But yeah, you have to do if PlayStation VR 2 is this year, you have to do a showcase dedicated to it, or the PlayStation State of Play about it that's dedicated to it. But then also, where's God of War? Because God of War Ragnarok, if it is this year, needs its own State of Play talking strictly about it. And then you have to get those done to be able to talk about anything that happens afterwards, right? Like, when do you talk about Spider-Man 2, and when do you talk about what to be excited for in 2023? Like, you don't have PSX, but do you have some kind of PSX? Are you doing some kind of December showcase?
The way I would think you would do it is like, again, I think as PlayStation you don't do a summer showcase, because I think they've been sticking to fall for at least like the last year. And so I could see it be the thing of, you get to Summer Game Fest Live, you talk about what you need to talk about, which I think would be God of War Ragnarok. Maybe it is like, if God of War Ragnarok hits this fall, which I don't know if any of us think it is, but if the plan is for this fall, I think you do another trailer or something, like a big reveal. Atreus is now the playable character, or like whatever the thing is. You have that at Summer Game Fest Live, and then maybe you have like a VR game, because you already know like Horizon Call of the Mountain.
Correct,
is the
nailed
name of the game. They have that in the ether, right? Like, they're not in a place where they're not talking about the VR games at the very least, right? I think I could see another trailer for. And this is now me in Fantasyland, and so like, you can walk with me or you can jump off the train. But like, I could see it be here's God of War Ragnarok trailer, and then followed up by, also, we're working on a God of War VR game coming out of Sony Santa Monica as well. And it's
It
not
would be
them
fun
talking
to
about
throw that axe. Can you imagine? Like that
Oh,
in
in
VR,
VR?
like the whole
that'd
just
be dope as
Kratos
hell.
axe throwing, basically. It'll be like a
That's out of the game, yeah. God of
it's
War,
like
Kratos
that
action.
Nintendo one where it was like the discs, but with the axe.
But I can see it be, and it doesn't have to be God of War, right? It can be like, here's God of War Ragnarok, and then here's a PlayStation first-party VR game that we're announcing. Not the VR details, not things about the console, just another game. And then in July, it is the PlayStation VR showcase that is focused on the VR launch in the fall. And then once you get to the fall, right, it is God of War, it is the VR launch, and then you do have another PlayStation showcase that is focused on the future, 2023 and beyond. I think that's how they could do it, and I think that would line up with kind of how they've been operating the last couple of years.
Okay.
That's my prediction. Mark it down.
That's your prediction, but what are your PlayStation picks?
Of course, PlayStation Picks is where we talk about the games we've been playing this week, and also the drop for the week. The drop goes like this. Drop. Trek to Yomi came to PS5 and PS4 on Thursday, May 5th. Among Us Ejected Edition is out on PS5 and PS4 Friday, May 6th. And then Rift Tracks, the game, is out on PS4 on Thursday, May 5th. Barrett's going to bring up a trailer for this one. I do want to talk a little bit about this one because I thought it was fascinating when I saw it. Do you guys remember What the Dub? Were you guys both here when I talked about What the Dub? Of course, that was... we did play it on stream. Yeah, that was the Mystery Science Theater, like your Jackbox style game, knockoff. Yeah, where you're putting in like different prompts for them to say on in like the movie scene that they're showing on screen, and you're trying to make the funniest one to get the most votes. This is basically another version of that from the same creators as What the Dub. The description reads: the game is a multiplayer party game where players compete to make bad movies funny. Grab your friends and make fun of some of the worst cinematic abominations ever created. Rift Tracks has been bringing their comedic commentary to movies for over 15 years. Now's your chance to riff along with them. Do you have what it takes to be the next movie riffing genius? I watched the trailer for this one right now. It's on with no sound for the video watchers. The trailer sold me in the exact same way that What the Dub sold me, where it's like the same exact kind of humor, though I think unlike What the Dub, I think in actual action once we were playing it didn't live up all the way, just because I think some of it can be stilted. It was kind of hard to think of good prompts for the stuff that they're delivering. This seems like it pulls back a little bit and is more focused on just the narration and like adding in voiceover for the narrator to make the scenes funny, as opposed to like trying to create a new line of dialogue for what's going on in the thing. And like as I was watching it, like as somebody who likes party games and I like Jackbox and all that stuff, I found myself falling back in the trap of like, oh man, this sounds fun. I kind of want to do this on a stream. But yeah, that's Rift Tracks. It got me.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because like what the dub I was so excited for as a definitely lapsed but old school fan of Mystery Science Theater. I remember when we played it, it was like, oh, this just didn't hit that way, and so I hadn't really been paying attention to this one. But you're saying it looks like it's gonna hit.
Yeah, Bear, are you able to play it again with sound? We can watch a little bit of the trailer to get the explanation.
Yeah, give me a
I
second.
think that's possible.
Here.
Yeah, because like it has like a lot of similarities to what the dub, but it feels like it is them going like, okay, let's try this again. Like we might be able to nail it.
I'm glad they got another shot, and I'm also glad they got it licensed with Rift Tracks. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is the real deal.
Hey everyone, Mike Nelson. I'm pleased to announce that Rift Tracks has teamed up with the makers of What the Dub to bring you Rift Tracks the Game, a multiplayer party game that lets you riff with the best of them. Grab your friends and make fun of some of the worst cinematic abominations ever created. Featuring over 250 movie clips from Rift Tracks classics such as Roller Gator, Attack of the Super Monsters, and Plan 9 from Outer Space. Featuring 2 exciting ways to play. Write your own riff and watch your comedy genius come to life via text-to-speech.
David was watching his mother make some cookies
and wondering where it all went so wrong.
Or leave it to the pros and choose from over 2,000 expertly crafted riffs from our Rift Tracks team.
I can't even admit I saw the thing. Amazon delivery drone, got your toothpaste here.
Yeah, all right, I see it. All right.
Yeah.
Shout out
you
to
can
Plan
stop it
9
there,
from
Kevin.
Outer Space. That's a classic one right there.
So yeah, that's the like I think that's a really good solution to the problem that I think we're having a lot with What the Dub is like it was really hard to think of certain jokes for a lot
Well,
of
it's
the
also
times.
it just didn't play with the robot voice. You know what I mean? Like so much of
Yeah.
it is like even that's like a great read on that line. Like so much of that comedy needs to be, I think, the timing and how it is. And so when it's like text to speech, yeah, it just wasn't that great.
Yeah, and so like I want to at the very least try this out. And you just sent me the code, so I appreciate that. That was really fast, Greg.
My code, I've had a code sitting there. I was like, man, I'm not gonna be able to get to it for a while, and we didn't love the last one, so I'll see. So like the fact you're excited, there you go, Bless. Play
I
this
appreciate
weekend. Get Yami together. Get the whole crew out there.
That's gonna be a good time. Greg, what you pick to play on PlayStation this week?
My pick, I won't spend too much time on it because it's like out of the things I've been playing, a lot are old. I've been playing a lot of WWE. It's funny we were talking about regretting selling games. For some reason, I got a wild hair of like I really should. I want to play a Fallout like game, and I was like, you know what? Let's boot New Vegas. And so I dug around in my PS3 games to see if I still had New Vegas, and I did it. So I put it on Xbox and played that for a little bit. But I'm just playing a bunch of old stuff, except that I was on the review or stuff that's been out. I was on the review for Trek to Yomi, and so again. I guess we haven't talked about it too much on the show, but Trek to Yomi is up right now. Our review on the KindaFunny Gamescast. It's me and Andy who beat it, talking to Bless who hasn't tried it, and then Tim who played a little bit of it and bounced. And it's not a uplifting review; it's a sad one. Like it's a game, but we were all excited for it to some extent, and both Andy and I are let down. Like visually stunning, a really cool style, but like I said in my the review that then got turned into a TikTok, right, of just like it's all sizzle and no steak, right? It's all flash and no substance. Like the combat itself is not that much fun, and I think that it doesn't have a rewarding progression system and so on and so forth. And for me, that means it's overstays its welcome. And so to compare it to something like Rogue Legacy 2 that I can't wait to get back to, that I enjoy so much, that I feel like I'm making progress in all the time. This one was a slog to get through at the end. And so it's, like we talk about, like what did you pick on PlayStation this week doesn't mean what am I picking as the best PlayStation game. It's what I picked to play this week on PlayStation. And for me, it's a flat one. So I encourage you to watch the review if you were interested in it.
Nice. For me, I've been continuing with 13 Sentinels. I've pretty much beat it. Like right before this podcast, actually, I sat down to try and knock it all the way out, and now I have like one more destruction mission to do, which is the RTS sections in the game. But I was marathoning through this game, and in an earlier episode, I mentioned that like man, I don't want to look at the how long to beat because I don't want to see that it's 40 hours long and then get discouraged from actually beating it. And now that I look at my PlayStation clock, right, I played 36 hours of this game, and I played so much of that on Sunday. I want to say it was either Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. And like the game has like a tracker where it tracks like the percentage you're done with for each section of the game. And I went for like the pure narrative stuff. I made the jump from about 40% to 80% on Sunday. Like I was trying to get this thing knocked out because I knew that my Steam Deck was coming and I wanted to play Rogue Legacy 2. And so I've been trying to get it out the way, and I wasn't able to finish it because the game just kept going and going. And honestly, like that is one of my critiques with the game, is that the game it keeps going. Like you think this game is ending and it goes on for another 5 hours, and it's been a bit of a slog, mainly because I think the story is so good, the characters are so good, the reveals are off the chain, but I think it kind of falls into its own trap of having way too many reveals. Like this game has more reveals than I think any other video game narrative that I've ever played. Where like right when you think you got a grasp on what's going on, boom, here's a life altering thing that they reveal to you that changes the entire context of the game. Hour later, here's another reveal that changes the entire context. And like all of it's fascinating, all of it works within the lore, all of it is things that they build up to, and all the things, and they're a payoff to in some sense, but I do think they overdo it in terms of how much it wants to lean into surprising the player and doing something very ambitious with its 13 different characters that you're playing through and all their intertwining storylines. Because, with how non-linear the game is, right? To catch people up if they've not heard me talk about 13 Sentinels, right? In the narrative portion, you are again picking between these 13 different characters to play as, and they all have their own stories in this sci-fi narrative, and they intertwine, and they all kind of come back around together where they all work together, where you kind of understand like, oh shit, this is what the full story of this game is. Because of how non-linear it is, there are certain reveals that you might be at with certain characters, but you don't make it to with other characters. And so like, and with there being 13 characters to manage, it is so easy to get lost of where you're at in the story. Where with let's say I'm playing as Juro Izumi, right? With Juro Izumi, I am like way further along in his story. So like he's seen some shit. Like he is like, oh man, yeah, I know this about the world, I know this about the timeline, I know this about the Sentinels. But then I hop into Iori's story, and Iori's like, yo, I'm still on step 1. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. And I think once you get there, it gets so fascinating and so interesting. But I think the other thing is that, Greg, I think last week you were talking about, as I was describing it to you, you were like, man, this sounds like it could get convoluted. And at that point, being about 40% in, I was like, no, actually, it's surprisingly not convoluted for having these 13 characters and 13 different stories. Sure. I am now sad to report
oh my gosh.
that having reached the end of this game,
13 Sentinels over.
having reached now the ending of this game, for the last, I've said that I've played 36 hours. The last 8 hours I've been so excited to finish this game so I can watch YouTube videos telling me what the fuck is happening, because it has gone off the rails in ways where I'm like, why would you have this many reveals happening? I think like for nerdy ass people that love this kind of narrative, that wants some like deep ass nerdy ass like wild ass sci-fi with like a bunch of different reveals and shit, like this is going to be a wonderland for you. You're going to have such a great time. For me, I reached a point where I was like, you can stop now. Like, we can stop now. Like, the nature of the world is cool. You keep trying to make it cooler, and now I'm just getting more confused the more you do to it, right? It's like that JRPG or like even anime thing of like, at a certain point in every JRPG, you got to fight God, right? Like, that's what happens. And like, thankfully in this game, spoilers, you don't fight God, but it's a similar level of, oh, you had to take it to the craziest degree you possibly could.
I was enjoying this story and these relationships, and now it's just...
Yeah. I was like, I was loving the story. I was loving the sci-fi.
You know what? You know it's going to come together because it's all going to be about fucking friendship. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
And they're going to get you in those feels. And even though like you're not fighting God, but you're fighting some ridiculous thing, you're going to start crying because of like what it's going to mean for all of these 13 Sentinels and their Aegis rims, and like what that means to them in their hearts. The Aegis rims were the friends we made along the way. Blessing.
That's deep. Good. That's actually really deep. That's actually really, really deep. But yeah, like I love this game. I adore this game, but I wish it wrapped up way sooner, because it just went down a rabbit hole of reveals that I was like, man, we didn't need to get here. Like now, nothing matters.
You did finish it though, right? You said? that you're
I'm
done?
like on the very last mission.
Oh my gosh,
and
you're still not done. Wow.
Well, like
All right.
it's gonna take me 10 minutes. Like I would have had it finished if I had 10 more minutes before the show.
Well, they
The
all
other
say.
thing,
And have
the
you
other
uncovered the
thing-
truth to survive?
I have uncovered the truth, yes. And the truth is both mind-blowing, but also has made me empty. Like I can't spoil shit, so it's so hard to talk about. But I will say, what I'll leave you with is this: I think I might platinum this game.
Oh my
I think
god.
I might-
You're
and I-
reaching levels of toxicity that normally are reserved for Greg. What's going on?
I truly love this game.
Join us.
And it sounds like I don't, but you've had 2 episodes of me just fucking like pouring iteration onto it, so I have to get to this point.
Also, Bless also always has 1 game a year that he platinums.
That
Him
is
and
the
I-
Barrett
him and I
knows.
are-
Oh.
Because
Barrett
Barrett
is
is the same.
1000%
We always
correct.
try to get 1 platinum a year, and he has chosen this to be his 1 platinum, and I respect
I've chosen this to be the 1 platinum because it's
Wow.
done the thing that I love, which is now that I'm about to beat the game, I took a look at the trophies and I was like, ooh, it will take me a few more hours, only a few more hours of game time. But basically, and I could have done it if I had planned ahead. Where basically to get the platinum, I need a S rank 30 missions in the combat stuff. And so if I was being a bit more diligent, I could have knocked that out. And then also I need to there's like optional objectives for the RTS missions as well. If I did the optional objectives diligently, I would have had that. But I do have like 12 S ranks in the missions, and then I've done most of the objective stuff anyway. I just need to clear that stuff out, which I can do, and they allow you to do that, I think, on casual mode. And so it's going to be a breeze once I do that, and that's only going to take a few hours. The thing is, do I want to put in those few hours and have those take me away from playing Rogue Legacy 2, which I'm also loving?
Hell yeah.
Part of me is like, no, but then the other part of me is like, I'm so close anyway. And I at the end of the day,
It's
I
one of those,
do
if you put
really
it down,
love
like
this
you won't
game.
get back to it, right? Backlog
Exactly.
season will run by
The
you.
file's so big. You probably want to knock that out just to delete
For
it.
is the file big for third? I don't think the
Is
file's
it?
that big.
I imagined it would be. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's one of those ones where like, oh, I'm surprised it's only like 8 gigabytes or something. It looks like
It's not like
huge.
it's not like a big. It's not like Final Fantasy
Persona
7 or
5
anything.
is a 120-hour game, and I think the file size is like maybe
file size is like
15 gigs.
4.83 gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a very
Well, for 13 Sentinels, that's pretty large.
4 gigs?
yeah
Oh,
4.
I thought you said 48.
No. Basically
48
almost
gigs? Oh
5
no,
gigs.
that's nothing. Yeah, no, okay, that's
It's not doing all that
you
to
can
like
keep that
have a
forever.
crazy file size. But yeah, that's my time with 13 Sentinels. I've enjoyed it, but man, it went places that I didn't entirely love. That's my
And
final
that is
review.
the like, I definitely don't agree with that you need to always beat a game to like review it because, like it's fine as long as you're transparent about where you're at. But like, it is wild how many games, I guess one quick question I have for you about 13 Sentinels is like, how much did this change your like critical perception of the game? Like, did it actually not skew it, but you just kind of had a bad time? Like, because like for me, I think of like Dying Light 2. I was so into that game, and then the end happened, and like the stuff leading up to the end, and I was like, yeah, this was fine. Like, it wasn't the second coming.
No, I
like
didn't
thought
have
it was
that
gonna be.
because the game still has so much going for it that is incredible. I do think that what it does with the 13 different storylines and how they overlap, I think is really impressive still. And like the gameplay setup of the fucking reveals in this game are insane, and I think like insane in a good way, but then it ends up getting insane in a not so great way. But like when it gets there, it's not like it takes away from all the other incredible stuff in the game. Like I still love the characters, I still love the story, I still love even the RTS gameplay. I am surprised by how much of a good time I'm having with it. Like I'm having a blast with it. Like art style, music, like there's so much that the game does that is so good. It's that thing of when you love something so much that when it stumbles, you notice it extra because you want it to be perfect. And I think 13 Sentinels was so close to being perfect, pristine, but it got to the place where it was like, why did we go all the way here? Like, and they until you guys know, they did explain why they're naked in the Sentinels, just so you guys know, because that was brought up when I
why are
first
they
talked about
naked?
it.
Or was that a big spoiler?
Spoilers, big spoilers. But also one of the things where I'm like, this is fucking crazy. Like, why would you
I'm
take
probably
me
never
here?
gonna play this game though. Slack
Yeah, I
it
feel
to
like
me.
you can just tell us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not
you
gonna
don't know
play
if the
this.
audience listening might care though.
Well,
I
that's
can
why
save it
it's
for the
still
post show.
Slack
I can do a
Too
post show
selfish.
spoiler.
All right,
video.
post show. I want to know why these people are nudie inside these Sentinels. Now, speaking of platinums, what have you been playing, Janet?
Yeah, I rebooted up Horizon Forbidden West. I'm working on my platinum run of that game, but I'm also like doing a a lazy completionist like run where I don't think I'm gonna complete everything because that'd be kind of insane, especially if you think about like upgrading all the armor sets or something, even like the ones I'm not going to use again. But I am sort of logging, like tracking the trophies and then kind of like going where my heart desires. And occasionally I'll pop back in and be like, what trophy could I maybe work on? Like, maybe I can knock one of these out real quick. But I'm doing like side quests that I probably don't even need to do because I'm like, I just want to kind of like clean up as much of the map as I can. Like, I like the game, so I'm enjoying playing it. If I want to get the platinum, I could probably get it a lot faster than I'm going to end up getting it, assuming that I do end up getting it and, you know, make the time for it. But like something like there's a trophy for upgrading 2 armor sets completely, and I'm going to do that with one of the purple armor sets because that's the one I use, but like it's going to take way longer because it requires like really
More
you know, a
stuff.
bunch of high level stuff. And people in the chat were like, why don't you just upgrade the green one? It'll take like 2 seconds. I'm like, but I don't want to use the green one.
Look at
I
you,
use
you're
the
doing it
purple
right.
one.
You know, you're not
You
just
know,
out there
yeah,
trophy
I'm like,
whoring. You're doing this the right way.
I'm like, yeah, there's a purity here, or something. I don't know. Anyway, but I also finally played Strike because I didn't play it like for the review because I just didn't care to play it. Like, again, they were explaining the rules, and I'm like, you're throwing a lot of words at me. I don't understand or care to hear them. But then one of the trophies is like winning 2 Strike games, which is, appreciate that. They don't make you play all the games, just 2, win 2. Okay, cool. So I had to learn how to play, and I'm like, oh God, how's this gonna go? And honestly, I like Strike. I'm a pro, like I'm a, like, not like pro, like professional, but like I am for it. I'm down for Strike.
I don't hate this. I don't hate this on site.
Yeah, I might say that I like it. I think I might hit up a couple other games. Like, now I want to get like the pieces and stuff. Like, it's fun, and it is actually a pretty simple game. I don't know what about it kind of was off-putting to me when I first heard it. Maybe it's because it was in that opening area where you're like getting a lot of information. You're like, I just want to run and be free. Like, I don't want to sit here in this, you know, Oseram camp where I'm like fighting for workers' rights, but also kind of like, maybe we don't need to fight that hard because Aloy is kind of like that weird in between for everything. Anyway, but I stuck with it. I checked it out, and I liked it actually a lot. It's pretty simple. It's a lot of just like flanking and like just thinking about the point distribution, and like, I like that it incorporates again, such a late take on Strike, but I like that it incorporates the different like creatures and stuff, and the idea of like environmental kind of buffs that you get for like where you place the stuff. Yeah, I like Strike. I'm down for Strike. I don't know if I'd go like all out where if they made a physical version of it, I'd buy it, but I enjoyed my time with it. Other stuff I knocked out. Geez, what else? Like, I did more of something I still don't like, the freaking races, because there's a trophy attached to one of those. That still doesn't feel good. Also, the races are stupidly long. Like, I was like in first place.
Remember when I did that on a post show here with us, and I was like, this is
like,
still going.
They're like several, and then there is no icon saying how far into the track you are. Like, there's no lap counter or like distance counter. So I'm like, honestly, like, I was streaming it, and I'm like, if I don't get first here because I get like knocked out last second, which I don't even know when the ending of this thing is, I'm gonna like rage quit because I can't do this again. Like, I'm not gonna do it again. But yeah, I'm having fun with the platinum overall, hanging out in that world. And they fixed too the final trophy, for those who might not know. Someone messaged me on my Patreon about this, but I hadn't like seen it myself until I booted up the game. But if you missed that final missable trophy, which was like kind of the only missable, I think, where you have to scan basically the final boss and like one of the enemies before the final boss, like, I didn't scan those, so I didn't have that trophy, and I'm like, well, we'll deal with that later. Maybe I'll have to beat the game on easy or something and just run through it. But no, they just gave it to you. Like, they gave you that scan. So if that was deterring you from completing the game or from getting the platinum, you know, you can totally return because you have that trophy now, or at least that you have that entry. You know, you still need to scan all the other ones. So I'm still working on that trophy because I'm missing a couple creatures. But
how far? Like, do you think? Are you to the point where you think like by next week you're gonna have it platinumed, or is it way further than that?
No, it's way further, and then it just really depends on like how I'm going about it. If I were to sit with it like a whole day, that'd probably be like a pretty big chunk. But I just don't have any real plans for what I'm doing. Like, I streamed it last week because I'm still doing random streams on Saturdays. Typically on Saturdays I stream like a game my community picks, but I gave myself a break from like the community games after doing, God, what was the last? Outer Wilds, which was like a long process that was worth it at the end, but like it took, after Outer Wilds and Demon Souls for like the community stuff, I'm like, y'all, I'm taking a break from these big games. Like, ain't no one in the community want me to play a 2-hour game. That's my beef. Where's like the short, quick hit experience? Everyone's like, go into this. Like, the next one I'm going to play is Yakuza for the first time. I'm like, that game's huge.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait
Good luck.
for a second before
Janet,
I boot that
I've
up.
tried like 5 times. I've tried 5 times to get in Yakuza, the series as a whole, and I just can't.
I'm the same way. Even though I dig it while I'm playing it, but it's just so hard to stick with it for some reason.
I do 2 streams at minimum of 4 hours a piece to like, and if I don't like, I definitely won't like play through a game I hate, because I'm like, that's just going to be bad for everyone involved. Like, it's not going to be fun. But I think I'll probably like it enough.
Did you
but
ever play
it's so
Judgment?
long, is the thing. No, I haven't played any of that. I think the one my community picked, I think they're leaning on either Zero or Like a Dragon. I have to check with them to see which one they want. But
Sure.
yeah, so I don't know. I have no idea what my future with Horizon holds, but I really do want the platinum. I just don't know how much time I'm going to be carving out for it. So like, I'm sure I'll mention it again on the show, hopefully. So we'll see where I'm at when I return. But yeah.
All right. I'm excited for that update later on. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to do a post show, which we're about to do over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Of course, if you're watching live right now, you already knew that. But before we get out of here, we have a very special returning outro segment. P.S. We love you, XOXO. Now, this is written by Barrett, but he wants me to read it, so I'm going to read it. As you know, some of us here at KindaFunny, Barrett and Blessing, are big fans of Persona 5 Royal. And today, to wrap up the show, we wanted to end with a hashtag P.S. We love you for one, Billy Kometz. Billy is not only the voice actor for
Taketo
Barrett,
Maruki.
Thank you. In Persona 5 Royal, but plenty of other voices and things you may love, like Metal Lee in Boruto, Ferdinand in Fire Emblem Three Houses, and Josuke in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Billy was recently diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and because he's given us plenty of great memories with characters he has voiced, we wanted to help him. We wanted to help send him some love in the classic KindaFunny best friend fashion. There's currently a GoFundMe to help with his treatment bills. There'll be a link in the description below. But if you can't give anything, we think it would be nice to see some love on Twitter as well. So if there is anything Billy has been in that you've been a fan of, tweet at Billy Kometz, and it's Kametz, to show him some love and tell him what your favorite role of his is. Well, that's very sweet, Barrett. I like that a lot. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Awesome. There is no Persona 5 Royal without Billy.
Maruki, we've talked about a lot. He pops off screen because of Billy's performance. I've talked a lot about, like, I do think Billy, like, genuinely deserved a nomination for best performance the year that game came out, because I really don't think that, like, on paper and script writing he's great, but like Billy's performance really in the English dub like really pulls that all together. And he's been in so much other things that I know people love, and like even just like watching his video where he announced his diagnosis, like I'm not super familiar with him outside of his role in Persona. But he just seems like a really positive dude. Like even just in the face of hearing this news, he's just like continuing to try to keep it positive. And there's a lot of things that reflects in him that I see in the character and performances that he gave with Maruki and stuff. So I just thought it would be nice to shout that out, because I was streaming earlier this week and someone brought that to my attention. So give what you can, even if that is just a tweet saying like, hey, like you were great in this, you're in this anime that we love or this game that we love, and just send him some love that way, because I'm sure he would appreciate it.
Again, Billy Kometz, Kametz on Twitter. However, I did go and make a short link. KindaFunny.com/Billy will take you to the GoFundMe page if you have the money or the means to drop some cash there. I know it's easier if you're in your car right now, probably to remember KindaFunny.com/Billy. So go ahead and do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a post show to do on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. But remember, of course, this has been PS I Love You XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week, Janet, Blessing, Barrett, and myself come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation and recap the week in PlayStation. If you like that, of course, get the show ad-free, patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Watch it live, write in, all that jazz. If you have no bucks tossed our way, no big deal. Each and every Friday, you get a brand spanking new episode. YouTube.com/KindaFunnyGames, RoosterTeeth.com, and podcast services around the globe. If that wasn't enough, you can use KindaFunny on the Epic Game Store, or when you're using your Fall Guys or your Fortnites or whatever, wherever you're playing any of that on your PlayStations, you can go ahead and use the KindaFunny creator code there. For now, post-show time. So until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.